Chapter 1734. Unlucky, unlucky, unlucky. Wei Gongqi's old face turned green. His lips trembled as he cursed in his heart. All these years he had been hiding from place to place, like an old book that couldn't see the light of day. He had been avoiding Wu Chen's pursuit endlessly, hiding in the dark world, plotting to make a comeback in the future. The heavens had indeed given Wei Gongqi face. The Holy Grail War that was supposed to happen once every 60 years actually started again after 10 years. Wei Gongqi thought that his hope had come. But, damn it, I washed my hands after going to the toilet. Why am I still so unlucky? Why did I meet this jinx? Wei Gongqi complained incessantly as 100,000 alpacas' army flew through his heart. Good things did not come true, but bad things did. The more fearful something was, the faster it would come. Wei Gongqi. So the reason you were able to live for so many years was because a despicable person like you stole Avalon from Alice Phil. Dustless sneered and said indifferently, but, you can hide now, but you can't hide forever. I've let you live for so many years. Now that I've sent you to the Western Paradise, I'm sure you have no regrets. How did you find me all of a sudden? Wei Gongqi's face was ashen. His face was filled with confusion and bewilderment. Wu Chen was like a ghost that could not be defended against. He had appeared silently. I can't tell you that. Do you have any last words? Dustless asked softly with a benevolent expression. He said generously, if you have any last words, just say it. I'm such a kind person. Let me take care of your wife and daughter. Cough, cough, cough. When Wei Gongqi heard this, he choked on Dustless's words and coughed. He said angrily in his heart, take care of you? It's the best member to expand your harem. Hey, 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 don't show such an angry expression. Seeing the angry Wei Gongqi, Dustless waved his hand. After carefully sensing the condition of his body, he frowned and said, Avalon's aura seems to have disappeared. Did you transfer it to someone else? No comment. Wei Gongqi said expressionlessly as he closed his eyes in despair. It seemed like he did not intend to continue talking nonsense with Dustless. He acted as if he could do whatever he wanted with Dustless. He seemed to have accepted his fate, but there was nothing he could do about it. If it was someone else, Wei Gongqi would still fight, but if his opponent was Dustless, he could not muster up the courage to fight. If humans could fight against heroic spirits, then what was the point of having heroic spirits in the Holy Grail War? Hey, do you think I wouldn't know if you didn't tell me? What a joke. 10 years ago you adopted a son. I remember you named him Wei Gongshirang, right? That kid was still alive and kicking after the fire I guided. There's only one possibility. You implanted Avalon into his body. Dustless calmly took a sip of the hot tea on the table and explained. You even found out about this matter. You want to kill the scholar now? Wei Gongqi's heart turned cold. Cold sweat was already dripping down from the depths of his forehead. Kill that brat? Of course not. At least for the time being, I have no reason to kill him. Dustless shook his head as he heard this. The corner of his mouth revealed a meaningful and evil smile. What are you scheming? When Wei Gongqi heard that Dustless was going to let the scholar go, his heart immediately relaxed. Then he saw that terrifying demon-like smile. Wei Gongqi understood that his thoughts were too naive. Would a temperamental demon let go of his enemy's son? Absolutely impossible. That guy has Avalon in his body. It's just right for him to summon Saber. Dustless did not hide his intentions and answered straightforwardly. I want to be a candidate for master, but that great holy grail keeps rejecting my power for some reason. It's really an abominable tool. Since that's the case, I can only use your precious son. When Wei Gongqi heard this, he was secretly worried. As Dustless's former master and enemy, he knew how terrifying Dustless's strength was. Once he was done using Wei Gongqi, it was very likely that he would kill him directly. Alright, it's getting late. Let's end our conversation here. It's time to send you on your way. A large amount of light appeared in Dustless's hand. The light was aimed directly at Wei Gongqi's head. If his head was chopped off, everything would be over. Who are you? Why are you in my father? What do you want to do to my father? At this moment, a sharp roar of shock and anger was suddenly heard. It's you? When Dustless heard this, he stopped what he was doing. His clear eyes turned around and looked over. What he saw was a red-haired young man. Who are you? Get the hell away from my dad. The young man clenched his fists tightly. His eyes were red as he angrily locked onto Dustless. When he saw Dustless holding the Heaven Cluster Cloud sword and aiming it at Wei Gongqi's neck, he became even more nervous. This idiot still dares to talk nonsense. Especially when he's angry and wants to challenge me. How childish is this kid? He really deserves the title of Aardwolf. When Dustless saw this, he scolded and mocked, "Little brat, if I were you, I would run away now and not stay here and wait for death. I'll leave now. This is a personal grudge between me and him. It's not up to an outsider like you to interfere." Wei Gongqi ordered in a low voice. "Disappear now. Outsider? I'm not an outsider. I'm my father's son. I won't allow anyone to hurt you." Wei Gongqi's tone was raised a few times. His fearless voice made people respect him. Chapter 1735. This scene is really touching to the point of tears. Dustless wiped his tears as if he was really touched by Wei Gongqi. Tears flowed out of his eyes in an exaggerated manner, as if he was filled with self-blame and shame. "If you are really touched, you should let my father go." Wei Gongqi shouted loudly, "Otherwise people like you will be punished by the heavens sooner or later. I am thinking for your future." Wei Gongqi added a strange sentence, "You better not make a mistake." Is there something wrong with your brain? You are actually lecturing me? Wei Gongqi, pay attention to your status. Little brat, don't be so shameless. You are just a human brat. When Dustless heard this, the tears at the corner of his eyes instantly disappeared. His expression was cold as he snorted. Some people were just so self-righteous. The more you gave them face, the more they would show off. Wei Gongqi was enraged. His scarlet eyes flashed with a red light and he looked just like a wild beast. If it wasn't for Wu Chen's Heaven Cluster Cloud sword that was placed on Wei Gongqi's neck, perhaps this fellow would have already rushed over to fight to the death. "Move the sword away." Wei Gongqi suppressed the anger in his heart and said in a deep voice, "Let go of my father and I can treat it as if this matter did not happen. We will not owe each other anything in the future." This brat is really stupid. Maybe he thinks that I am a burglar. Dustless shook his head when he heard this. It seemed that this brat still did not understand his status and thought that he was the victor. In reality, it was just as Dustless had guessed. Wei Gongqi thought that he was a burglar. "Shiro, you idiot, leave quickly. This is not something you can interfere in." Wei Gongqi also warned. He was already prepared to be killed. This was a personal grudge between him and Dustless. Absolutely not. When Wei Gongqi heard this, he stubbornly shook his head and said loudly, "No matter where you come from, if you dare to harm my father, I will definitely, Poochie." Without waiting for Wei Gongqi's voice to fall, Dustless controlled the golden heavenly sword of gathering clouds to chop down horizontally. The scorching light that could cut through iron like mud shattered Wei Gongqi's body. Bang! A badly mangled and charred head fell to the ground. Pa pa pa. Wei Gongqi was dumbfounded. He stared at the head that had died with its eyes wide open. Even though the head had been chopped off, its eyes were still open as it stared at Wei Gongqi. He did not expect that Dustless would suddenly attack so viciously. Moreover, his methods were so vicious. He crushed Wei Gongqi's head without any guilt. "I'm going to kill you. I must kill you." After being stunned for a while, Wei Gongqi suddenly stood up like an enraged lion. He glared at Dustless with his blood-red eyes. His bulging eyeballs almost popped out of their sockets. Gulu gulu. Within Wei Gongqi's body, a large area of green veins swam up and down. It was extremely horrifying. Just like Jiantong Yan, his entire body was filled with a deadly pressure. Hee. The only thing that was not flattering was that in such a solemn atmosphere, a burst of mocking laughter could be heard. Looking up, it was Dustless with a face full of smiles. "Do you want to take revenge for your stupid father? Bring it on, little brat." Hooking his finger, Dustless's face was filled with provocation. That arrogant look in his eyes gave people the feeling that he was looking at an insect. It was filled with endless mockery and contempt. "If I don't kill you, I'm not human." Wei Gongqi was enraged. He pointed to the sky and swore. After that, he picked up the steel pipe on the ground and flew over. Shoo. Although Wei Gongqi was just an ordinary human, because Wei Gongqi had trained him frequently, his speed had almost reached the limit of a human's speed. Shoo. His body was like a gust of wind as he appeared in front of Dustless. The steel pipe was also aimed at Dustless's head. Who would have expected that Dustless would raise his eyelids and glance at the steel pipe lightly before grabbing it directly? Is that all you've got? So weak that it's pitiful. Wuxian glanced at the shocked Wei Gongshurang with pity. He couldn't help but shake his head. This guy really regarded himself as an insignificant character. Seeing that Wei Gongshurang was in a daze, Dustless raised his hand and slapped him. Slap, slap, slap. Although it was only 20-30 meters, Dustless had slapped Wei Gongshurang dozens of times consecutively. That fellow's head was swollen like a pig's head, and blood flowed out continuously from the corner of his mouth. Following that, Dustless kicked Wei Gongshurang in the air, sending him flying more than 10 meters away. He fell to the ground miserably and could only mutter weakly. After being beaten up by Dustless, Wei Gongshurang was badly injured. His mouth was crooked and he could not speak properly. It gave people the impression that he was stuttering. Idiot, I still need your help to summon Saber. This time I'll let you be arrogant for a while. In the future, when you're no longer useful, I'll send you and your father to meet in heaven. Dustless retracted his killing intent. Although he could not wait to kill Wei Gongshurang and get rid of this annoying cockroach, the current situation did not allow Dustless to act recklessly. There was one thing that could not be denied, and that was that it was not the best time yet. If Wei Gongshurang was killed, the person who could summon Saber would disappear completely. Live on while you're at death's door. Ignoring the wailing Wei Gongshurang, Dustless brushed past him. He wanted to use his own ability to summon Saber, but the probability was 0. First of all, it was impossible for a heroic spirit to become a master, and it was even more impossible for him to perform the ritual to summon Sarvant. Although Dustless's abilities were special in some aspects, it did not mean that he was omnipotent. Chapter 1736. Damn it. Wei Gongshiro's face was ashen as he touched his chin that was kicked crooked. His old face was flushed red with shock and anger. He was so embarrassed. He wanted to stand up again, but his body was so weak that it felt like it was about to fall apart. As soon as he stood up, he fell to the ground. It was impossible for him to muster the strength to fight back against Dustless. This guy is definitely not a normal human. Wei Gongshiro's face was filled with fear and panic. Even though Wei Gongqi had told him about the magician profession, it was completely different from what he had imagined. Especially when it was an existence that was so strong that he could not deal with it. Useless trash. Dustless turned his head and looked at Wei Gongshiro, who was curled up in the corner like a kitten. He sighed in boredom and retreated lazily. A mere mongrel was too weak. There was no value in exploring it. It was just a pawn. Speaking of which, I wonder how things are going on Rin's side. I wonder if she managed to summon Archer. Dustless lowered his head and pondered. After handing over the holy relic to her, Rin Enbin could not wait any longer and disappeared. Dustless did not know if the ritual to summon Sarvant was successful or not. During this time, Dustless also tried to summon Sarvant, but it ended in failure. Seriously, I can even destroy a planet, but I can't summon a heroic spirit. In the quiet alley, Dustless sighed softly. He looked up at the sky. His bright eyes were a little dazed and there was a hint of self-mockery. And, suddenly, Dustless turned his head to look at the dark alley behind him. He said softly, "After following me for so long, I think it's time for you to come out. Let me see which heroic spirit you are." Ah, what a headache. You actually discovered my existence. Gee, looks like you're even weirder than I thought. The atmosphere was silent for a while and then suddenly there was a shocked voice. When I heard that Master wanted me to assassinate a human, I felt that my dignity was being insulted. But I didn't expect you to discover me. You're worthy of being killed by me. I'm very confident in my concealment skills, but you discovered me. This is something that humans can't do. A man in a suit similar to the European Middle Ages came out from the left side of the alley, holding a blood-red spear in his hand. His gloomy eyes fell on Dustless, full of shock. To be honest, he was really shocked that a human had discovered his tracks. This outfit and that gun. You must be a Lancer, right? After a few seconds of silence, Dustless revealed Lancer's identity. At the same time, he could not help but feel a headache in his heart. He had no part in the Fifth Holy Grail War, but he was dragged into it by some random person. He felt really depressed and wronged. After all, Dustless's current identity was neither master nor servant. To put it bluntly, he was just an unemployed vagrant. Who sent you here? Dustless asked in surprise. Could it be Yen Feng Qili? Really, the luck of these two brats was better than the other. It's fine that Wei Gongqixi is still alive, but Yen Feng Qili is still alive too. Who knows? I'm not interested in knowing master's name. Lancer held his spear with both hands and stared at Dustless with burning eyes. He did not hide his desire to fight at all. Bring it on. Dustless curled his finger and smiled innocently. Don't you plan to use a weapon? Lancer frowned and looked at Dustless, who was bare-handed. He was rather unhappy and even a little angry. He thought to himself, what does this brat mean? Why doesn't he use a weapon? Is he looking down on me? He. The corner of Dustless's mouth curled up slightly. His bright eyes saw through Lancer's inner thoughts. You guessed right, I look down on trash like you. Human, you're looking for death. Lancer was infuriated when he heard Wu Chen's words. A ruthless glint flashed across his eyes. Immediately he turned into an afterimage and thrust the spear in his hand at Wu Chen's eyes. Lancer was particularly annoyed by the look of contempt in Dustless' eyes. Bang bang bang. The light of the spear pierced through Dustless's head. The entire tip of the spear was inserted into Dustless's eyes. His skull was destroyed. Even the gods would not be able to save him, and he would die without a doubt. The touch doesn't feel right. Lancer's face froze. He subconsciously pulled out the spear tip. There was a huge hole in Dustless's eyes, but it recovered in less than a second. Is that all? Staring at the shocked Lancer, Dustless did not hold back. You want to shake me with such a crude physical attack? You overestimate your ability, Lancer. Well, it's my turn to fight back. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. Activating the ability of the flash fruit, Dustless's body flashed and crossed through layers of space. He instantly appeared behind Lancer. On the other hand, this guy was still looking left and right. He did not notice Dustless's existence behind him. Although heroic spirits were far stronger than humans, they were not invincible. For example, the speed of light. Lancer could not rely on his naked eyes to capture Dustless's tracks. Little did he know that when Dustless and Lancer were fighting, two figures were watching the changes with interest. Where did that guy's heroic spirit come from? It seems like the outcome is decided in an instant. Should we launch a sneak attack, Master? Chapter 1737. Kill him. How confident are you? The girl who was called Master asked. Her eyes were filled with hope. She hoped that her hero spirit could kill Dustless. How confident? The male hero spirit fell silent. His voice was filled with ripples. He shook his head and pondered for a few seconds. A sneak attack is still possible. If it's a head-on battle, I'm afraid 10 of me won't be his match. Archer, you're not purposely going easy on him, are you? The girl with delicate features pouted. She was annoyed by Archer's answer. 10 of you won't be his match. How are you going to help me get the Holy Grail? Don't say such hurtful words in the future. I'll doubt your ability, Archer. The girl with the ponytail put her hands on her hips and looked at Archer arrogantly. Ling, I'm just telling the truth. If that guy can really use that kind of insane speed, I think none of the hero spirits will be his match in close combat. Don't forget, I'm an archer. Close combat isn't my forte. Archer said honestly. He looked at Dustless with fear. Is that so? Ling Enbin fell silent. He then nodded and said, but Dustless isn't master or servant. So we don't have to worry. In fact, we're allies. Allies. The red-clothed, white-haired archer was stunned. He said in surprise, if he's not master or servant, why is he our ally? Is he your relative? Ling. No, Dustless is the winner of the last Holy Grail War. Ling Enbin shook his head. He then took the initiative to walk toward Dustless. Lightspeed kick. The flash of a foot landed on Lancer's body. Lancer, who didn't even have time to react, was sent flying like a cannonball. Boom, boom, boom. A blazing fireball rose into the air, and Lancer's entire body was pulled into the flames. There was a special smell in the air. It was the smell of Lancer being cooked. You overestimate yourself, how dare you ambush me? Dustless sneered at Fireball. Go home and train for another 8 to 10 years. You're too weak, Lancer. However, at the same time a sudden change occurred. Swish, swish. Dustless was stunned for a moment when he heard a sharp sound of something breaking through the air behind him. He turned around and asked in surprise, "Is this a red gem? Could it be Ling? Did he summon Archer?" "But, Ling, you're still as laughably naive as ever." Staring at the incoming gem, Dustless sneered indifferently. His pupils widened slightly, and the black flames instantly eroded and annihilated the gem. Tens ho! In the blink of an eye, the gemstone was engulfed by the sea of fire. The endless black flames devoured the surface of the ground and spread towards Archer at a terrifying speed. "This kind of fire can't be extinguished?" Archer was sweating profusely. He stared at the evil nightmare fire and could not help but have goosebumps. He looked at Dustless's eyes. That terrifying silence was like an abyss. It made one's scalp tingle and it was very uncomfortable to breathe. Ling seems to know this guy and their relationship seems to be quite good. Fortunately, this kind of person is not an enemy. Archer had never doubted his own intuition. He had been on the battlefield for a long time, and he had already trained his senses to be different from ordinary people. He could detect how terrifying Dustless was. He was like a sleeping wild beast. "Strange you're not master. This is the 5th Holy Grail War. Your identity as servant should be over. Why would that guy ambush you?" Ling Enbin looked at Dustless in confusion. After staring for a while he said strangely, "Dustless, don't tell me you're flirting with other people's master? Am I that kind of wretched person in your heart?" Dustless was extremely unhappy. His eyes were staring at the red-clothed Archer next to Ling. "You look good." Dustless nodded to Archer as a greeting. He continued to ask, "You'll attract other people's attention if you walk around with a follower like this." That's exactly what I want." Ling Enbin put his hands on his waist and said with a proud expression, "Archer, go and deal with Lancer. Let me see your strength." Ling Enbin ordered while pointing at Lancer in the ruins. "Every dog has its day. This debt I'll settle it sooner or later." Lancer retreated after seeing Archer appear. Dustless was already difficult enough and Archer seemed to be his ally. If he wanted to defeat them he would need at least 10 lives. "Don't chase him, let him go." Dustless opened his hand and stopped Archer. He smiled viciously and said, "I left that flying thunder god warlock on Lancer. I can locate his coordinates at any time. As long as that guy meets his master I'll kill them." "Flying thunder god warlock? What's that?" Archer and Ling Enbin asked at the same time. Dustless was speechless for a moment. This kind of thing could not be explained easily. He could only lie. "You can treat it as a positioning radar. It can appear beside Lancer at any time. I've already marked him as dead." Chapter 1738. Both Archer and Rin Enbin were confused. They didn't know what Dustless was talking about but they understood the basic meaning. This was a very special technique. As long as the user left some kind of energy mark on the enemy, they wouldn't be able to escape from the nightmare that Dustless had created for them. What a despicable person. You let him go on purpose, didn't you? When he returns to Master he will activate the technique called Flying Thunder God Sorcerer. Rin Enbin snorted disapprovingly. He cursed Dustless for being so cunning. Despicable? Ling, you'd better remember this well. The people who live the longest in the world are usually the despicable ones. They are the ones who are good at scheming. Dustless rolled his eyes as he lectured Rin. "Let's go back for now. The Flying Thunder God Sorcerer can't be eliminated anyway. We can find the right time to kill that kid." In the Ahrensburg family's castle, Dustless and Rin walked back side by side. As for Archer, he was tricked by Dustless into attacking Wei Gongshiro. There was no other reason than to help Wei Gongshiro become master. Archer didn't like Dustless's order. After all, his master was Rin Enbin. However, after thinking about it he finally agreed with Dustless's plan. Compared to the cunning Dustless, Rin was still too naive. Strange. Dustless and Rin stopped in front of the Ahrensburg family's castle. The barrier that was set up in the past was broken. Rin reached out to touch the air and found that he could easily invade the barrier. The barrier that covered the Ahrensburg family used to have a thin layer. Damn it. Although that barrier was set up a long time ago, it's impossible for ordinary people to break it. Only one kind of person can do this. Speaking up to here, Rin Enbin's expression suddenly became anxious, and he quickly ran towards the luxurious villa. "Rin, although it's undeniable that someone broke in, there's no need to worry. They don't have any bad intentions. A calm and composed voice rang out. Dustless lazily followed up and said, "You still can't tell? Other than the destruction of the barrier around the building, there are no other signs of fighting." After Dustless's reminder, Rin Enben's gaze shifted slightly. He found that it was just as Dustless had said. Other than the broken barrier, the buildings and lush green grass were all brand new. There were no traces of broken walls or glass shards. There was not even the slightest sign of battle. After careful consideration, the other party was indeed not the type to come with ill intentions. "Let's go in and take a look." Seeing Rin Enben's worried expression, Dustless pulled her into the castle. Sigh. You two haven't come to see me for so many years. It's very hard for me to live alone. This is wrong. You have to compensate me for my loss." A young girl's coquettish voice sounded from Alice Phil's room. The soft and ethereal voice was very pleasant to the ears. Although it sounded barbaric and unreasonable, the young girl's tone was unusually soft and gentle. It was hard to dislike her. Could it be that she came? Dustless, who was walking to Alice Phil's room, suddenly stopped. This soft voice and slightly arrogant tone could only lead to one person. It must be her. Dustless's head skimmed through the gap in the door. A young girl with long white hair came into view. It was exactly as he had guessed. As expected, Ilya came uninvited. No wonder she could tear apart the barrier. With Berserker's ability, this is more than enough. Dustless instantly understood. He subconsciously looked at Rin Enben, hoping that she would leave for a moment. However, she seemed to have deliberately broken into the door. "Where did this thief come from? How dare you break into my house?" Rin Enben displayed her chilly side and reprimanded loudly with her hands on her hips. After all, her mother, Kuei Enben, also lived in this castle, so it was normal for Rin to be angry. However, it was worth mentioning that the person she provoked this time wasn't a good person either. "Rin, your temper has gotten worse." The young girl, who was as delicate as a porcelain doll, wasn't afraid at all. She looked into Rin's eyes and snorted. "Your temper has gotten worse, but your strength is still average. Be careful, I will let Berserker teach you a lesson even if you are mother's friend. An uninvited guest like you dares to spout such arrogant words." Rin's anger accumulated in his heart. It was fine if Ilya didn't apologize, but now she even wanted to teach him a lesson. If he could tolerate it, what else could he tolerate? Archer. Berserker. The two of them didn't like each other and instantly attacked. Rin Enben was the most exaggerated. He directly used a command spell to order Archer to rush over as reinforcements. These two really can't tolerate each other. Dustless had a headache. In the original work, the relationship between Rin Enben and Ilya was very bad. Dustless wanted to persuade the two of them, but the two of them looked at him with indignant gazes. "Who are you helping?" These three simple words made it difficult for Dustless to resist. After all, the two of them were related to Dustless in countless ways. Especially their mothers, who had already become one of them. "Rin, put down your dagger. And Ilya, throw away the stool in your hand." Chapter 1739. Dustless was in a dilemma when he saw this. With a stern face he scolded, "Be clear about your identities. Although you are both masters and are in opposition to each other, the two of you can definitely try to work together before this." "Work together with her? Don't even think about it," Ilya and Rin Enosaka said at the same time with great tacit understanding. "You're really asking for a beating." Dustless didn't know whether to laugh or cry when he heard this. However, he still released his clenched fist. He could teach the enemy a lesson if they angered him, but it was a different story for Rin and Ilya. Dustless also felt troubled. Immediately, he looked at Alice Field helplessly. "It's rare to see you so helpless, Ilya. Now isn't the time for you to fight." Alice Phil pursed her lips into a smile and patted Ilya's head. Although Ilya was pouting, Alice Phil's words were clearly more effective than Dustless. "I'll let you go this time," Ilya said angrily. In the end, she rubbed against Alice Field's chest unwillingly. "Humph. Just a little brat." Rin Enosaka immediately retorted. In fact, she was relieved. If she were to face Ilya alone, she wouldn't have any chance of winning. After all, Berserker's stats were second to none. "Ilya, you didn't appear here to assassinate us, right?" Dustless casually took an apple from the fruit plate and nibbled on it. He said vaguely, "The two of you should stop before going too far. If the two of you get into a fight like this next time, I can't just ignore it. His words were full of warning, but the effect was surprisingly poor. Ilya continued to joke with Alice Field while Rin Enosaka held her head high with her hands in front of her, completely ignoring Dustless's existence. Little brats these days will start fighting just because of a disagreement. And if they can't defeat the other party, they will indiscriminately vent their resentment on the adults. Dustless kept the words that were about to come out of his mouth. His gaze suddenly fell on Archer, who suddenly appeared. This guy was originally carrying out a mission outside, but he was forcefully summoned back by Rin Enosaka's command spell. Archer, how is Wei Gongshiro? Lazily sitting on the sofa, Dustless poured himself a cup of coffee and asked softly, did the kid summon Saber? I've prepared so much for him. Don't disappoint me. Archer had a strange look on his face when he heard this. He was silent for a while before muttering, according to your plan, I forced Wei Gongshiro into a corner. In the end, according to your plan, Wei Gongshiro successfully summoned Saber. However, the result was too different from what I expected. At this point, Archer's tone suddenly stopped, and his expression became even more strange. The result is different from what I imagined. This is interesting. Tell me about it. Seeing Archer's hesitant look, Dustless's interest was piqued. Did you lose to Saber? You don't have to take it to heart. Winning and losing are normal. Just look at it rationally. Besides, you're an archer. You're at a disadvantage in close combat. Losing to Saber is normal. Long-range sneak attacks were Archer's specialty. It's not that I lost to Saber. It's just that we didn't fight. Seeing that Dustless had misunderstood his meaning, Archer quickly shook his head and said bluntly, after Wei Gongshiro summoned Saber, Saber saw me chasing after Wei Gongshiro. Instead of helping instead? Dustless looked at Archer in surprise. After taking a sip of coffee, he said, what was the result? Don't tell me that Saber helped you chase after Wei Gongshiro. You're right this time. Saber did indeed ignore my existence. He watched as I chased after that brat Wei Gongshirlang. Not only did she not help him, she even helped the tyrant. She cheered for me, hoping that I could kill Wei Gongshirlang. Poochie. Dustless spat out all the coffee in his throat and his eyes suddenly widened. Really, even if she hates Wei Gongshiro, there is no need to hate his son. No, it doesn't matter if she hates his son. She doesn't want him to die so soon. When Wei Gongshiro died, Saber would also disappear. Because of Saber's special identity, it seemed difficult to resurrect her with the outer path of reincarnation technique. Wei Gongshiro, that kid must be angry when he met such a strange spirit. Dustless couldn't help but be speechless. He didn't expect Saber to have such a personality. Not only was she indifferent when she saw her master being chased, but what was even more melodramatic was that Saber even encouraged Archer to chase after Wei Gongshiro. This kind of plot was worlds apart from the original work. Now there was such a huge change, it was all because of Dustless's instigation. Saber won't kill Wei Gongshiro impulsively. Dustless frowned and thought secretly. Castor was a living example. He was dissatisfied with his master. As a result, he killed his master and fled to Ludong Temple. It's impossible to kill master without using the command seal. Ling heard Dustless's whisper and interrupted, unless Wei Gongshiro consumes all the command seal, servant can't kill master. So that's how it is. The relationship between them is really troublesome. Dustless nodded gently, touched his chin and said to himself, anyway, that kid will be killed sooner or later. It's okay to let him be for a while. Chapter 1740. I really envy you, masters. Dustless was embarrassed like an overturned jar of vinegar. His whole body was filled with a sour feeling. At first he dreamed that he could become a master. Although Dustless was not a magician, he could also become a master. For example, Gumu Soichiro was not a magician, but he finally became a master. The only difference was that the servant and the master signed a contract in a strange way. Gumu and Castor signed a contract by having sex on their first night of marriage. Dustless could also sign a contract with other heroic spirits in this way, but the probability of Saber being willing to do this is no less than the sun rising from the west. Dustless let out a long breath. He knew that he had no chance to be a master in this life. Glancing at Alice Field and her daughter who were chatting and laughing, as well as Rin Enbin who was still angry, Dustless tactfully retreated. The whole room was filled with a thick smell of gunpowder. If he didn't leave as soon as possible, he might be involved in an inexplicable topic again. The Holy Grail must be mine. As soon as he came out of the room to breathe, an extremely angry voice came from behind him. Rin, I won't stop the fight between you two who let it be destined. However, I will definitely not allow you to harm each other's lives. I promised Alice Field that I would protect Ilya and live a carefree life. Dustless's nerves were tense, his expression was serious. He knew that there could only be one winner between Rin Enbin and Ilya. The rules of the Holy Grail War were like this: both of them wanted to get the Holy Grail, so they were destined to win and lose. I say, you are too biased. You should say this kind of thing to that little devil Ilya. And the person you should worry about is not her but me. Ilya's berserker is stronger than my archer. Rin Enbin was jealous. The red archer was not the opponent of the golden sparkle, and it was not the opponent of the berserker. That's right. Anyway, I don't want you to get hurt, just think of it as an entertainment to kill time. Dustless scratched his head and didn't comment on her words. In the original work, the red coat archer was killed by Elia's berserker. No matter what, don't overdo it. Dustless couldn't be bothered to stop the conflict between Rin Dosaka and Ilya. Both of them were masters, and for the sake of each other's honor, both of them had to obtain the so-called Holy Grail. It was inevitable that there would be a victor as long as they didn't harm each other's lives. The next morning the sun shone brightly. That night Ilya did not leave. Instead she chose to stay here and occupied Dustless's bed. Dustless, who was originally sleeping with Alice Phil, could only move. In the middle of the night he shamelessly ambushed Oki Enosaka. She was used to this kind of thing anyway. At first Oki Enosaka was embarrassed, but she couldn't stand Dustless's coaxing and pestering. Especially when it came to this kind of thing, Dustless's shamelessness was through the roof. In the end Oki Enosaka succumbed. Under the sugar-coated attack she lost her intelligence and ability to resist. She just subconsciously cooperated with Dustless and the two spent the night together. Bang bang bang. As soon as he put on his pajamas, there was a dull sound of someone pounding on the door. Such a big commotion, is it Ling? Hearing the violent noise, Dustless instantly shivered. It would be a tragedy if Oki Enosaka caught him red-handed. Dustless, whose skin was thicker than the city walls, was fine, but as for Oki Enosaka, she would never be able to raise her head to face Ling in the future. Bang! Just as Dustless was about to leave, the locked door was suddenly opened. Dustless, why are you here? Fortunately, the person who invaded the bedroom wasn't Rin Dosaka, but the more innocent Sakura Tadashi. Well, Dustless was at a loss for words. He really didn't know how to answer this awkward question. I'm here to call your mother for breakfast. Dustless made up a ridiculous excuse with a fake smile, and deliberately changed the topic. Sakura, you don't look well. Are you feeling unwell? He touched Sakura's forehead. She didn't have a fever. I'm fine. Sakura answered with a red face. She stared at Dustless's face and gritted her teeth. My older brother Shinji Tadashi has been harassing me recently. I want to rest at home today. I won't go to school for the time being. Shinji Tadashi. A blue-haired young man suddenly popped into Dustless's mind. Although he had killed Shinji Tadashi, the other members of the Tadashi family hadn't done anything. Harassing you again? Shinji, that brat sure has guts. Dustless's face was as cold as ice. Shinji Tadashi wasn't a good person, and so was Shinji Tadashi. In fact, other than Sakura, the entire Tadashi family wasn't a good person. Leave this matter to me. Giving her a comforting look, Dustless patted the girl's shoulder and signaled Sakura to rest assured. At that time, because of Sakura, the Tadashi family hated him to the core. Sakura was an important prop. After being robbed by Dustless, the Tadashi family was so angry that they gritted their teeth. However, due to the gap in strength, the Tadashi family had always been afraid to speak out and kept a low profile. In the past, Shinji Tadashi had also looked for Sakura several times. As a result, he was beaten violently by Dustless and ran away. Tut-tut, after becoming a master, Shinji Tadashi's temper has become a lot worse. He probably thinks that his wings have hardened. Dustless's face became colder and colder. In the past he could have regarded Shinji Tadashi as young and insensible. But this brat had repeatedly touched Dustless's bottom line. He could only be eliminated. What's more, he was a master. Killing him was also eliminating a potential enemy. Chapter 1741. In the school where Sakura usually went to school. Sakura, that guy didn't seem to come to school today. Does he think he can avoid me like this? What an idiot. I can go to her house at any time. With Ryder, I don't have to be afraid of that hateful man. The people of the Tong family will always belong to the Tong family. That damn thief. On the roof, Tong Xinji looked at the dense crowd below and said to himself. As he spoke, his face became ferocious, and his fist uncontrollably pounded the fence in front of him. Bang bang bang. Under the agitation, Tong Xinji pounded a few times in succession and then roared in pain. Damn it, it hurts. It's all because of that hateful man Dustless. I must kill him. Aw. You want to go to my house to make trouble? You want to kill me, boy, your ambition is really big. A faint ripple appeared in the void, and the voice immediately spread without warning. This is... Tong Xinji's pupils shrank. This calm and indifferent voice in Tong Xinji's ears was extremely harsh and even made his eardrums hurt. When he went to the Ahrensburg family to ask for Tonging, he was beaten violently by the owner of this voice. Tong Xinji lay in bed for a few months before he could barely stand up. Don't show such a hateful look. You're lucky. For example, your grandfather Tong Zhongyan, that old guy, was directly torn to pieces. A faint ripple appeared in the void again, and then a large number of flashing ripples condensed. A thin figure with hands in pockets entered the eyes. It's really you, Ryder. Seeing Dustless's hateful face, a figure suddenly appeared beside Tong Xinji. Master. A beautiful purple-haired girl suddenly appeared, and very respectfully knelt on one knee. Hateful bastard, do you think I'm still the weak me now? Tong Xinji arrogantly raised his head and asked arrogantly, It's undeniable that your strength is very strong, but in the end you're just a human. You can't be the opponent of a spirit. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. However, Dustless smiled coldly, and in a flash he came to Tong Xinji. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The flowing light was unstoppable. In an instant, ignoring the existence of distance, it arrived in front of Tong Xinji in the blink of an eye. And under the latter's surprised gaze, it grabbed Tong Xinji's neck in a flash. So fast. Ryder was shocked. Was this the speed a human should have? Not to mention humans, even heroic spirits could not achieve such speed. Put Master down. After being stunned for a moment, Ryder hurriedly attacked. With a light wave of her hand, a cold light pierced towards Dustless's face. Binding Dao 81 sky-shattering. Dustless remained motionless. The spiritual pressure in his body surged slightly, and then a transparent barrier formed in an instant. Bang! A dull explosion spread out, but the barrier that was as thin as a cicada's wing only shook slightly. It remained as immovable as a mountain and was not destroyed. Is Ryder really a god? He's so weak. Dustless's heart was full of doubts. He knew that Ryder's real body was actually Medusa, an out-and-out goddess. Although that was the case, the performance of her strength was really not flattering. Ryder, you useless trash. Tong Xinji's face turned green and his breathing became weaker and weaker. He was still choked by Dustless. Are you qualified to say that others are trash? Dustless's gaze fell on Tong Xinji again and he said contemptuously, Xinji, trash like you is even worse than trash. Using trash on you is an insult to it. Tong Xinji glared at Dustless. His ferocious eyes could not wait to swallow Dustless alive. This guy dared to ridicule him like this. It was an unforgivable capital offense. Fragile. Dustless looked at Tong Xinji with pity. This guy was just like him. He did not know any magic, but he insisted on participating in the Holy Grail War. Wasn't this a typical behavior of looking for abuse? Xinji, sometimes I wonder if your head is made of stone. You don't know how to think. A cold light flashed across his face. Dustless then waved and then casually threw Tong Xinji out. Bang! Tong Xinji's body smashed on the thick wall and the surface showed dense cracks. Tong Xinji suddenly spat out blood and his internal organs were shaking. You bastard! Tong Xinji flew into a rage. His mouth was full of blood and he looked at Ryder. Kill him for me. Understood, Master. Ryder nodded like a zombie and picked up her weapon tied with iron chains again. Even with the blindfold she could not see, but because of the characteristics of Medusa, she could still smell Dustless from the atmosphere. Yo Ryder, why don't we talk about a deal? Following Xinji this trash, you will be dragged down sooner or later. Dustless's killing intent converged and he whispered, you should be able to see the ability of this guy. Although I am also a dabbler in magic, I am at least stronger than him. Damn you bastard, do you want to instigate Ryder to betray me? Are you kidding me? I will never allow this to happen, absolutely not. Tong Shen'er was like a cat whose tail had been stepped on. He jumped up with a rub. Betray. It's really not appropriate to use this phrase to describe it. Since the master can choose the holy relic to summon servant, why can't the servant summon the master? Dustless did not care about Tong Shinji's livid face. When he was about to continue to speak, a very discordant figure broke into the farce. Chapter 1742. The mysterious intruder was wearing the same uniform as Shinji Tsushima. He had a head of messy short red hair, and coincidentally Dustless found that he actually knew him and he belonged to the type that he was rather familiar with. Tsukaiti, isn't this Wei Gong Shiro? I've heard that you and Shinji have a good relationship. The rumors are true. You came to save the damsel in distress so quickly. Dustless touched his chin and teased. You this guy. As the saying goes, when enemies meet their eyes turn red. Wei Gong Shiro saw Dustless's ugly face, and his face was filled with killing intent. A while ago, Dustless killed Wei Gong Shiro's father, Wei Gong Shiro, in front of Wei Gong Shiro. Originally he heard a slight movement on the roof, so he came to check it out of curiosity. Who knew that the initiators were Shinji and Dustless? Projection. Wei Gong Shiro, who was holding a steel pipe, rushed over crazily. His speed was quite fast, like a black hurricane coming head-on. He had been strengthening his training recently, hoping that the next time he met Dustless he could kill his enemy with his own hands. Go to hell. The magically strengthened steel pipe fell from the sky and accurately landed on Dustless's head. Bang. Dustless's head was unusually hard, so it was fine after the strike. On the contrary, the steel pipe in Wei Gong Shiro's hand had cracks that could be seen with the naked eye. Gulp. Wei Gong Shiro choked and stared at Dustless with his eyes wide open. Let alone killing him, there was not even a basic wound on the head that was attacked. This guy, is he really not a monster? Wei Gong Shiro was shocked and absent-minded as he muttered to himself. Ignoring Wei Gong Shiro's shocked eyes, Dustless saw the command seal in his hand and secretly said in his heart, "This kid has succeeded in summoning Saber without a doubt. It's impossible for you to kill me with this method." Not caring about Wei Gong Shiro's shocked face, Dustless decisively added insult to injury. With your level of training for 1,000 years, you might be able to touch my toes. Even if you're looking down on me, you should know when to stop. The palace guard coldly raised his arm and looked at the command incantation in his hand. His eyes flashed with hesitation as he thought to himself, the command incantation can only be used 3 times. I can't use it all up or Saber will definitely kill me. Thinking of this, Wei Gongshiro smiled bitterly, feeling that the heavens were unfair. Wei Gongshiro didn't know how he had offended Saber. Although Saber was his servant, Saber completely ignored Wei Gongshiro's orders. Unless he used a command spell to make her work, Saber would not even look at Wei Gongshiro. Wei Gongshiro is also a master? Tong Shin'er was overjoyed. His relationship with Wei Gongshiro was not bad. He immediately suggested loudly, Wei Gong, the two of us should join hands to deal with this fellow. This brat is ridiculously strong. Shin'er. Wei Gongshiro's face flashed a touch of hesitation. If he could, he hoped that he could take revenge with his own hands. After all, this was a blood feud for killing his father. If others intervened, everything would change. However, when he looked at Wu Chen's head that was completely fine after being hit by the rod, Wei Gongshiro immediately gave up on his childish idea. With his own ability, he was afraid that he would not be Dustless's opponent in this life. No problem, let's join hands now. Come out, Saber. After hesitating for a while, Wei Gongshiro finally decided to accept Tong Shin'er's proposal. Dustless was too strong. With your level of cultivation, you can touch my toes in 1,000 years. Although this sentence was unpleasant to hear, it was the truth. Buzz buzz buzz. In front of Wei Gongshiro there was a sudden flash of light. A blonde girl wearing armor and holding a holy sword rushed out of the light. Even if she had not fully materialized from the vague outline, it could be seen that this person was Saber. Dustless, we haven't seen each other for 10 years. How are you? The emerald eyes circled around Dustless, and the surprise on Saber's face could not be concealed. 10 years were like a day, and time did not leave a trace on Dustless's cheeks. He gave people the illusion that it was 10 years ago. You two know each other? Wei Gongshiro's old face changed dramatically and he was hit hard. His servant and the enemy who killed his father were acquaintances. Why did such a melodramatic script fall on his head? Could it be? Suddenly thinking of something, Wei Gongshiro opened his eyes wide and said in horror, "Could it be that you... did you only realize it now? But it's all too late. My plan has succeeded. It's too late for you pawns to realize the problem." A gloomy laughter came from Dustless's mouth. He said coldly, "As the winner of the last Holy Grail War, I personally created this Holy Grail War. Your so-called servant and master are actually just my props." As for the purpose, it was quite simple. It was nothing more than to resurrect Saber. Saber was very special. Because she did not fall, but signed a contract with the world's consciousness before she died. The world would always stop at the moment before her death. Therefore she could not be resurrected using the outer path, reincarnation technique. Since he could not use the reincarnation technique, he could only hope that this Holy Grail War would give Saber a new life. In fact, this was also a result of accident. He originally planned to use the reincarnation technique, but after knowing Saber's secret, Dustless had no choice but to have the idea of the Holy Grail. Chapter 1743. Who's your pawn? Tong Shinji's eyes widened. He still wanted to use the power of the Holy Grail to become a real magician, not a dabbler like he was now. How could he give up the Holy Grail? Unless he killed him. Dustless, Saber was slightly touched. After experiencing Wei Gong Keisai and Lancelot's attack, if it weren't for Dustless's help at the critical moment, Saber's life direction and confidence would be completely lost. You bastard. Wei Gong Keisai's face turned green. He glared at Dustless fiercely. He was furious. He finally understood why Dustless spared his life that day. Everything was for him to summon Saber. Your cheap father Wei Gong Keisai thinks he's very smart. Did he really think I didn't know he was still alive? He's as naive as a child who hasn't grown up. Naive to the extreme. Dustless snorted coldly. You let him live for so many years just to find the right time to kill Wei Gong Keisai in front of Wei Gong Keisai. As his son, Wei Gong Keisai will definitely feel that he's very insignificant. Even your father's death couldn't be stopped. You who realize how insignificant you are will definitely pursue greater power. Servant. Dustless, this guy's IQ is really scary. Saber blushed with shame. Although Dustless's method was very despicable, she didn't have much disgust. Since Wei Gong Keisai could plot against her and Dustless, why couldn't Dustless plot against him and his father? If you do it, I'll do it back. Saber didn't think it was too much. Since you can plot against others, others can also plot against you. An eye for an eye, it was a karma. You bastard, who wants to be your pawn? Are you kidding me? I still want to be a magician. The Holy Grail is an important shortcut for me to become a magician. Tong Shinji roared angrily. He waved his hand and ordered, Rider, work with Saber to get rid of this eyesore bastard. Saber. The palace guard looked at Saber expressionlessly. Saber's body began to go out of control. No one could resist the command of the command curse. You shouldn't have come, Dustless. Saber reluctantly raised Excalibur. Radiance swirled around the blade and a crisp buzzing sound filled the air. Excalibur, a huge golden light came straight at Dustless. A dazzling slash tore through the sky. That cold slash caused the void to tremble slightly as if it was begging for mercy. Swish. Swish. At the same time, Ryder also nimbly moved to Dustless's left side. His cold eyes swept around. As long as there was a slight opening, he would cooperate and launch a fatal sneak attack. Ah, Wei Gong, if your Saber and my Rider work together, we'll be invincible. This brat will definitely die this time. The Holy Grail will be ours from now on. Shinji Tong laughed crazily, and his fanatical eyes had already seen the Holy Grail in his hand. Don't be careless. Compared to the deranged Shinji Tamatsuki, Wei Gongshiro's face was tense. He had heard from Wei Gong Keisai that Dustless had won the Fourth Holy Grail War. Although this guy had crushed the Holy Grail in the end, it was meaningless. He was the victor and he had destroyed all the heroic spirits by himself. Two ignorant brats with stupid faces. Staring at the light descending from the sky, Dustless calmly raised his right hand. A weak energy ball instantly formed. Wang Su's flash. The moment the energy ball descended, the void surrounding Dustless was instantly distorted. The golden energy ball was like the mouth of a deep-sea whirlpool, constantly shattering the surrounding void. Ka ka ka. The crisp sound of the explosion was extremely pleasant to the ears. Only Wei Gongshiro could hear it. It was so heavy and oppressive. Crystal-clear beads of sweat kept dripping down his face. This is bad. Wei Gongshiro was shocked. He felt a fatal sense of oppression. Although he didn't know the specific power of Dustless's move, in terms of scale, this move called Wang Su's Flash had already surpassed Excalibur. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Staring at the huge golden light rushing towards him, Dustless's expression changed. He calmly flicked his finger and the golden energy ball directly flew towards Saber's attack. Boom boom boom. The two unprecedented moves collided. The entire sky suddenly trembled violently. The energy ripples that spread out shattered all the glass within a radius of several hundred meters. Crack. The thick light tore Saber's attack apart in an invincible manner. It immediately went straight into the depths of the sky and finally exploded. Didn't I say it before? You're just chess pieces. Although your performance is very outstanding, but, in the end, you are still chess pieces. Staring at the stunned Shinji Tong and Wei Gongshiro, Dustless was full of disdain. Damn it. Kill him for me, Ryder. Seeing that Saber's attack had failed, Shinji Tong immediately ordered Ryder to attack. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. A blurry black shadow quickly attacked. Its speed was so fast that it was difficult to see it with the naked eye. One could only feel a gust of wind that was filled with ill intent. However, it was impossible to tell what it was. Clang 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 clang. One could also faintly hear a series of crisp roars. It was pleasant to the ear, playing the music of death. It must be the sound of the chain on Ryder's dagger. Chapter 1744. Asking for humiliation. Looking up at the sky, Dustless suddenly closed his eyes. Is this guy in despair? Is he going to close his eyes and wait for death? Seeing Dustless closing his eyes, Shinji was overjoyed and almost jumped up exaggeratedly. Humph, want to die? No way. We must torture him ruthlessly. Thinking of the humiliation he suffered, Shinji's face was twisted with revenge. Wei Gongshirang was silent. His eyes were fixed on Wu Chen's changes. Even the most basic movements and the most minute details were recorded in his mind. Then he carefully filtered them. Contrary to Shinji's thoughts, Wei Gongshiro didn't think that Dustless would give up. Buzz buzz buzz. A strange ripple splashed in the void, and then the air became much colder for no reason, as if living in an ice house, shivering uncomfortably. What's the situation? Everyone was stunned. The air became cold for no reason and it was chilly. Such an abnormal situation, something unexpected must have happened. Wei Gong, look, that guy's eyes are not jealous. Shinji pointed at Dustless with a trembling finger, and there was a deep fear in his words, feeling a lingering fear. That is, Wei Gongshiro was stunned. He subconsciously looked at Wu Chen's eyes. Wu Chen's scarlet eyes were filled with an ominous omen, like the pupils of the Grim Reaper. When they looked at each other, their bodies involuntarily wanted to bend their knees. Let's deal with you for the time being. The scarlet five-pointed star eyes were strange and unpredictable. These eyes were Dustless's eternal Menjikyu Sharingan. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Ryder, who was originally unbelievably fast, suddenly slowed down, and was clearly exposed to Dustless's eyes. This was all thanks to the eternal Menjikyu Sharingan. The dynamic capture ability was dozens of times stronger than usual. Dustless focused on Ryder's eyes without blinking, and suddenly there was a fluctuation in his eyes. It was so small that it could be ignored, but it really existed. Tsukiyami. After muttering softly, Dustless withdrew his gaze and completely ignored Ryder. What's the situation? Looking down on this uncle's Ryder? How dare you? Seeing this, Tong Shinji grumbled in dissatisfaction. My Ryder is not that weak. It's impossible to be defeated by a glance. Plop. As soon as Shinji's voice fell, Ryder fell to the ground with a plop. He lay on the ground half dead, as if he had fainted and was snoring. What's the situation? Staring at this scene in disbelief, the two old men's faces were filled with pain. He had just finished speaking and Ryder had been defeated in a single blow. The speed of this last strike was too fast. Tong Shin, even suspected that Wu Qin and Ryder were in cahoots with each other. Useless trash. Why am I so unlucky to have this trash as master? Shinji stomped his feet and cursed angrily, venting all the complaints on Rider. Servant strength is related to master. Shinji, you're a half-baked person yourself. Where did you get the confidence to point fingers at others? Dustless's cold eyes fell on Shiro and Shinji and continued, one servant has been taken care of, now it's your life. Suddenly, Dustless's cold eyes fell on Shinji's head. Don't kill me, all of this is Shiro's fault, I'm innocent. I was dragged in to deal with you, it was completely forced by this kid. Before Dustless could do anything, Shinji began to gloriously betray his teammate. Hearing this, Wei Gongshilong's heart turned over and he spat out a mouthful of blood. He stared at Shinji Tamatsuki with his eyes wide open. He didn't expect this guy to be so shameless. He proposed to join forces to deal with the culprit of Wuxia. It was obviously Shinji Tamatsuki, but now he betrayed his master for glory. Sure enough, I still have to rely on myself. Alliance and whatnot are all nonsense. Shiro smacked his lips and snorted at Shinji. Saber. Shiro glanced at Saber and the latter's body suddenly lost control. Restricted by the command curse, Saber had to pounce on Dustless again. Sure, I'll leave that kid to you. I'm not feeling well, so I'll retreat first. The heavy responsibility of saving the world will be left to you. Shinji ran away without turning his head, even ignoring Rider. What, you're asking me why I don't care about Rider's life? Such an incompetent person is not worth my blood. Shinji pushed all the blame onto Rider's weakness and didn't think it was his own fault. Shinji, I don't remember saying that you can go. A cold voice suddenly came and Shinji suddenly shivered. He turned his head and looked at Dustless in fear. Instead of slowing down, he sped up several times. Don't move, Shinji, you can't escape from this guy's palm. Suddenly, he found that Dustless's eyes were locked on Shinji, and his blood-red eyes were filled with ferocity. Shiro wanted to stop it, but it was too late. Amaterasu. Shinji's body suddenly burned with black flames. At first it was a weak flame, but as Dustless increased the output of chakra, his whole body was devoured by Amaterasu. Chapter 1745. It's burning me. Wei Gong, come and save me. Quick. Bathed in the Amaterasu, Tong Shinji wailed miserably. His heart-wrenching cry contained endless sorrow. The most horrifying thing was that no matter how Tong Shinji tossed his body, the fire could not be extinguished. Instead, because of the violent tossing, the fire became bigger and bigger. I am Sakura's brother. Do you want to see her heart broken? Tong Shinji could not bear the pain of the burning Amaterasu and took the initiative to beg for mercy. He promised, I swear I will never trouble Sakura again. Swear. Let me think about how many times this is. Dustless was indifferent. He was very tired of people like Tong Shinji who went back on his words. After teaching him a lesson several times, this guy promised to draw a line with Sakura. But Tong Shinji was shameless. Promises were worthless to him. He could break them at any time. Damn, what a heartless guy. Seeing Dustless was like a stone, unmoved. He did not even blink his eyes. He just watched coldly. Wei Gongshiro took the initiative to put out the fire. Boom boom boom. Wei Gongshiro took off his clothes and tried to put out the black evil fire. So hot. Soon Wei Gongshiro realized that he was wrong. This evil fire was different from ordinary fire. Not only did he not put out the fire, but he was almost contaminated. An unextinguishable fire? Wei Gongshiro was disgusted. He might as well try to imagine an unextinguishable fire burning on his body forever until he completely turned into ashes. Such a ruthless trick, how much resentment did it take? Aren't you afraid that Sakura will be sad? Wei Gongshiro questioned loudly. Dustless gave him the feeling of a cold ice cube. He only cared about the life and death of his own people. As for the life and death of other people, it was as light as a feather. Sakura, as an outsider, you are not qualified to call her that. And that Tong Shinji is the same. What's the point of living for a scum who even harasses his own sister? Dustless asked calmly. Tamatsuki Shinji is as hypocritical as your father. He talks about benevolence and morality and wants to be a righteous partner, but his actions are the opposite. The so-called justice was kept in one's heart, but when it came out of one's mouth, the original meaning would change. A naive brat like you has no right to talk about justice. That's right, you are also a hypocrite, Wei Gongshiro. Back then, Dustless and I helped your father win the Holy Grail, but at the crucial moment he actually ordered me and Archer to deal with Dustless. Despicable. You might not know this, but Wei Gongqi even used his own wife and even killed her with his own hands. Saber mocked loudly. Although she was under the control of the command spell, she could not control her mouth. Nonsense. Such a kind father would never do such a thing. Wei Gongxi roared with a red face. His scarlet eyes were filled with hatred. After all, Wei Gongqi was the person Wei Gongxi respected the most. Stupid thing, you keep saying that you want to be a righteous partner, but... With a gloomy smile, Dustless said with an evil smile, Wei Gongxi, the holy grail you are pursuing is actually the most evil thing in the world. It is all the resentment of humans. In this way you still dare to say that you are a righteous person? A hypocrite who talks about benevolence and morality, how shameless are you? Saber, tear this guy's mouth apart for me. Wei Gongxi, who could not stand Dustless's verbal attack, roared angrily. His red face and thick neck looked very scary. Idiot. Dustless could not help but shake his head. Then he gently stared at Wei Gongxi and an eye power similar to Tsukuyami shot out. Not good. Wei Gongxi's heart suddenly thumped. Rudier and Tamatsuki Shinji were living examples. They were instantly killed by that strange eye without any warning. They didn't even have the strength to fight back. Damn it, what's going on? In his mind, a strange illusion suddenly appeared. He had never seen it before, and the protagonist of this strange illusion was his father, Wei Gongxi. Bakudo number 63. 6-staff light prison. At the same time, huge golden light ribbons attacked from all directions, restraining Saber without leaving a trace. Originally, she had been ordered by Wei Gongxi to fight a bloody battle with Dustless until both sides were completely annihilated. Phew. Thank you, Dustless. Looking at the light belt on her body, Saber breathed a sigh of relief. Her body could no longer move. She was completely restricted by 6-staff light prison, and she could no longer continue to swing her sword at Dustless. It's too polite to say thank you, Saber. Dustless shook his head and glanced at Wei Gongxi. This guy had already fainted on the ground. He was confused by the ordinary illusion of Sharingan. He was not qualified to taste Tsukuyami. Are you willing to be my servant? If you continue to follow this kid, it may be disadvantageous to you or even order you to commit suicide. Although this was just a groundless worry, nothing was absolute. There was nothing wrong with guarding against the unexpected. He had spent so much effort to summon Saber and died for nothing for 10 years. It was inevitable that everything would go down the drain. Is this okay? Saber did not refuse and replied frankly, if you can do it, Dustless, I am willing to be your sword. Of course. Dustless nodded and admitted, but the way was a bit awkward. Just like Gumu Soichiro and Castor, they signed a contract on their wedding night. Chapter 1746. What way? Saber asked curiously. She had never heard that a person who was not a magic book could become a master before. Dustless blushed and was silent for a while. It's strange. You look like a girl. Saber's eyes looked at Dustless as if she had discovered a new world. In her impression, Dustless had always been the decisive type. Girl. Dustless's face darkened when he heard that. He immediately gritted his teeth and told her how to sign the contract. This. Sure enough, as Dustless imagined, Saber's ears suddenly turned red, and her whole person was as shy as if she had been painted. Who told you? After a long silence, Saber finally asked helplessly. She didn't expect that they would need to sign the contract with each other in such a way. How could there be such a shameless person in this world? This is what Ling told me. Dustless said bluntly. The actual source was Gumu Soichiro and Castor. After all, the two of them signed the contract in this way. And this kind of thing Dustless also asked Ling during the period, and the answer given to Dustless was yes. If that's the case. Saber took a deep breath and carefully looked at Wuxian, who was close at hand. Her heart was filled with emotions. As the king of ancient Britain, Saber had already cut off the love between men and women. She didn't like Dustless, and at the same time she didn't know what love was. She just had a good impression of Dustless and she didn't hate Dustless. If she had to make a choice, then Saber would decisively choose Dustless. Feelings were secondary, but there was also the reason of the Holy Grail. Although Dustless was not a qualified master, Wei Gongxi was also not a qualified master. After all, Saber's strength had been greatly weakened by following Wei Miyashiro. The biggest problem was that Wei Mia was unable to provide Saber with enough mana. It was extremely disadvantageous for her to face the other servants. Of course, this was also the case for Dustless. He was even worse than Wei Gongshiro as he did not have any magic power. However, Dustless's soul was so huge that it could be used as a foundation to provide Saber with unlimited magic power. Dustless, I've decided to be your servant. After some hesitation, Saber decisively jumped ship. In fact, when Saber found out that Wei Gongshiro's father was Wei Gong Keisai, she was filled with disgust towards him. You made the right choice, Saber. A warm smile appeared on Wu Chen's face. You want to abandon me? Stop dreaming. It was also at this moment that Wei Gongshi's voice suddenly sounded. Unlike before, there was a trace of indescribable madness in his voice. It gave people the impression that he was a dog that would jump over a wall in desperation. Yo boy, your consciousness is very tenacious. Dustless waved his hand and said to Wei Gongshiro, it's really amazing. I'm a little bit impressed by you, an ordinary human being who was hit by Sharingan's genjutsu and still retained his consciousness. You should be proud of yourself. Taking a closer look, Wei Gongshirang was looking at Wu Chen ferociously. His palm had been pierced by a dagger. This guy is quite decisive. Saber narrowed her eyes and praised, using pain to determine the outcome of the genjutsu. Very smart, this boy can persist until now, his willpower is very strong. Of course, my dreams and beliefs are still very far away. How can I be defeated by genjutsu? Wei Gongshiro said with a smile of exultation. But it's a pity. Dustless shook his head. His tone suddenly became low and cold as he said, the so-called dreams and beliefs are things that only the strong can talk about. You're going to die soon and you're still talking to me about beliefs and dreams. You're too naive, kid. I know that I will be killed. But Wei Gongshiro's face showed a smile of hatred and said fiercely, you killed my father. It seems that I can't take revenge, but I will make you suffer 100 times more. You seem to care about Saber a lot, right? Is this guy going to? Dustless's pupils shrank and a cruel look flashed in his eyes. He already understood what Wei Gongshiro wanted to do. Saber, I now order you to kill yourself with command seal. Wei Gongshiro could only think of an extreme way to take revenge on Dustless. Since he was going to be killed anyway, it was not bad to drag a girl to the grave with him, especially Saber. He could also make Dustless suffer, killing two birds with one stone. You bastard, are you so vicious? Saber was shocked. She didn't expect that Wei Gongshiro would order her to kill herself at all costs in order to take revenge on Dustless. At the same time, Saber's body suddenly began to lose control. She couldn't resist the command seal's order, and the tip of Excalibur was pointed at her neck. Chapter 1747. Saber's heart skipped a beat. She didn't expect that in order to take revenge on Dustless, Wei Gongshiro would order her to commit suicide at all costs. At the same time, Saber's body began to go out of control. She couldn't resist the command of the command seal, and the tip of Excalibur was already pointed at her neck. Ha! Wei Gongshiro laughed crazily and shouted crazily, what do you think? Although I can't beat you, I can order Saber to take revenge on you, so you can't do anything about it. Ha ha! Wei Gongshiro laughed sinisterly. He had been driven crazy, and this was all thanks to Dustless, which caused his temperament to change greatly. I can't do anything about it? Wu Chen murmured softly. His indifferent eyes were as calm as an ancient well. Not to mention nervousness which he had never felt before, there wasn't even a slight ripple in his eyes. Ordering Saber to commit suicide. Is this your trump card, Miyashiro? What a boring ending that doesn't interest me. Dustless looked up to the sky and sighed. He expected Wei Gongshiro to perform some shocking script, but he didn't expect it to be so boring. He just ordered Saber to commit suicide. It sounded like a headache, but the actual solution was extremely simple, especially for Dustless. It was as simple as eating and drinking. Buzz. There were bursts of energy fluctuations in the air, and then Dustless stared at Wei Gongshiro, and the scarlet eternal Mangekyo Sharingan focused on Wei Gongshiro's pupils. That last command incantation of yours. Lend it to me for a while. Lend it to you? Is there something wrong with your head? How can I lend such a precious thing to you, not to mention that you are my enemy? Wei Gongshiro sneered. It's funny, after all, this is the last time of your life. I will allow you to do whatever you want. Through Wei Gongshiro's eyes, a more majestic eye power than before invaded the depths of his mind. This guy's eyes, which were full of hatred, suddenly became uncontrollable and he called out respectfully. Dustless-sama. It's funny you dare to talk nonsense with this kind of trick, it's ridiculous. Dustless couldn't help but shake his head, he just needed to use the irresistible eye power to control Wei Gongshiro. Dustless-sama? What's going on? Saber stared at Wei Gongshiro with a surprised face. A second ago Wei Gongshiro wanted to die with Dustless, but now he suddenly called Dustless-sama. Sama, it was really unbelievable. Release order, Dustless's eye powers. Dustless's eye powers eye power. Dustless, psi power he Wei Gongshiro. Release command. Wei. After that Saber was surprised to find that her body was very relaxed, and the command that she couldn't resist had suddenly disappeared. She also understood that this was Dustless's doing. What a mysterious and terrifying man. I didn't expect you to be able to do this kind of thing. In the two Holy Grail Wars you're probably the biggest cheater, Dustless. Saber's face was full of admiration. Dustless could be said to be an ultimate existence. There seemed to be nothing he couldn't do. He was an omniscient and omnipotent character. The biggest cheater? Maybe after all this Holy Grail was personally created by me. There's nothing wrong with cheating, it's just my privilege. Dustless shrugged, he didn't think much of it. In the original work, Yanfeng Qili was the one with the biggest privilege. Everyone else only had one, but this guy had two, and he also had a lot of command incantations. It's time to get rid of this kid. He walked up to Wei Gongshiro and coldly raised his blade. It was best to kill this kind of scourge. By the way, before that, take out your scabbard. Looking at Saber, Dustless explained, Wei Gongshiro implanted Avalon into Wei Gongshiro's body. Is that so? No wonder it's not a coincidence that I can be summoned. Saber nodded and immediately went to Wei Gongshiro's side, and her hand went deep into his body. After a while, a shiny object with a mysterious halo appeared in Saber's hand. It was as dazzling as gold, stroking the texture of the vicissitudes of life. Saber's face was full of joy and she was a little excited. What should we do with Wei Gongshiro? Kill him? Saber's face was hot. She had promised to sign a contract with Dustless, and the Wei was naturally imitating the shameless way of Gumu Soichiro and Castor, through the way of her first night. Anyway, it's a sea of fire to keep him alive, just kill him. Dustless slowly nodded and immediately waved his sword without hesitation. Poochie! With a crisp sound, Dustless cut off Wei Gongshiro's head. Mr. Coyote followed in the footsteps of his father, Wei Gongshiro, and followed him to the underworld. This time, let's see how you're going to heal the wound. If you have the guts, you can play with me again. His eyes were dead, there was no emotion that a human should have. Glancing at the beheaded Wei Gongshiro, Dustless took Saber's little hand and slowly left. After the fall of Master, Sarvant would not disappear for the time being, but when the stored magic in the body was exhausted, Saber would inevitably disappear. Dustless's task now was to sign a contract with Saber. Chapter 1748. After destroying this kid's corpse, there will finally be no one with the surname Wei Gong in this world. Dustless stretched his body in satisfaction as he breathed out the air in a relaxed manner. The faint black fog on his face disappeared, and a cheerful little dimple appeared on his handsome face. It's rare to see you smiling so brightly. Saber was slightly moved. She had been working with Dustless for quite some time, and her impression of him was that there was always a layer between them. She had never been able to see through Dustless's true nature. Now that Dustless finally revealed his true feelings, Saber understood that Dustless was not as cold as she thought. Tensho. A weak flame slowly burned on Wei Gongshiro's body and slowly expanded until it covered the entire corpse. After the corpse was reduced to ashes, Dustless carried Saber and flew away. The latter only struggled symbolically for a moment before she let it go. Perhaps Saber did not realize that ever since she met Dustless, her personality had slowly changed. She even had the tendency to develop into a little girl. King Arthur was an extremely powerful person when he was alive. Everyone kept a respectful distance from him. He was outstanding and powerful. No matter who he was, they would feel ashamed of themselves. However, things were different now. When she met Dustless, who was even more powerful, it was inevitable that she would be affected. Her personality slowly changed without her noticing. This was not Saber's fault. This was human nature. Humans were originally creatures that adapted. When the environment changed, their personality and mentality would slowly change as well. They would gradually adapt to the unfamiliar environment and be unconsciously affected. By the way, you told me before. Rin and Osaka and Ilya are both masters. If we want to resurrect the Holy Grail, we have to kill their servant. Are you really willing to do that? Saber looked down at the bustling Dongmu city with her clear eyes and asked Dustless suspiciously. Saber was clear about the complicated relationship between Rin, Ilya, and Dustless. Why not? Dustless calmly asked in a carefree manner. There are gains and losses. Gaining something means losing something else. I've long been aware of this. Although Sarvant who killed Ling and Ilya let them down, it's also a good thing from a certain perspective. Both of them have lost their status as servants, so the unfriendly relationship between them will automatically disappear. So, I've decided to kill both Ling and Ilya Sarvant. This way, the relationship between the two of them can be restored to its previous harmonious state. Wuxian answered solemnly. His tone was resolute and decisive. Saber could tell that Wuxian was serious. Those two girls will hate you when they find out the truth. Sai, speaking of which, I just realized that your life is so difficult. Not only do you have to take care of your enemies, but you also have to be careful of your own backyard. Saber's tone was filled with sympathy and pity. You just found out. Dustless rolled his eyes at Saber and said, There's nothing we can do about it. The Holy Grail belongs to one person. The other candidates must be eliminated. Aren't you worried that they will dislike you? Dislike me? That's impossible. If Berserker can kill Archer, that's good. If he can't, I'll attack Berserker and put the blame on Caster or Lancer. Even if I kill Berserker and Archer, Ling and Ilya won't hate me. They don't know who did it. Dustless had a cunning expression on his face. Before this, he had already planned everything. What a sneaky guy. Saber pouted and snorted. Saber, instead of talking about these boring topics, let's discuss the signing of the contract as soon as possible. The longer it takes, the more unfavorable it will be for you. Staring at Saber with her bright eyes, Dustless's eyes lit up. The so-called signing a contract was actually a way to take advantage of others. It was just a nicer name. Saber's cheeks quickly turned red to her ears. She trembled and said, It seems to be a forest below. You don't want to do that kind of thing here, do you? What's wrong with that? There will be no suitable opportunity when we return to the Ahrensburg family. Dustless said, and at the same time his body fell to the ground. To be safe, he set up a dark enchantment. Even if the existence of the enchantment was seen, no one would know what Dustless and Saber were doing. Are you sure that the way of signing the contract is effective? Saber lowered her head and didn't dare to look at Dustless's eyes. She was about to unbutton her clothes, but she stopped. She always felt that what Dustless said was not reliable. This is the truth. Dustless gently nodded and said with great certainty, There have been such examples before. Even if Master is not a magician, he can sign a contract with Sarvant. Wei Gong Sherlang has already been killed. There is no other choice but to join you. We can only walk this path to the end. Anyway, all of this was given to us by you. After thinking about it for a while, Saber finally gritted her teeth and chose to accept Dustless's explanation. She really couldn't think of any reason why Dustless would deceive her. Everything was about motives, and Dustless had no reason to harm Saber. She then lightly waved her hand, and the heavy armor and outer clothes were removed one after another, revealing her flawless and delicate skin. Dustless's eyes turned red. Then he turned into a hungry wolf and pounced on her. When he woke up, it was already the next morning. Chapter 1749. Saber opened her eyes in a daze. Her emerald eyes were slightly confused. She then moved her body slightly and suddenly felt uncomfortable. Her expression changed slightly and her small eyes suddenly snorted. This guy must be a starving ghost. I can't feed him enough. Saber showed a bitter smile at the corner of her mouth. She found that she was unable to move at all. Last night, Dustless squeezed out all of her life's energy. She was exhausted. At the same time, Dustless and Saber also completed the contract between each other. From now on, Saber was Dustless's servant. Phew, I'm so tired. Dustless stretched, his eyes sunken, and yawned. Really, even the 10 tails will be worn down by this reckless life sooner or later. You still have the cheek to say that. Saber's charming voice sounded. He turned his head and saw that it was Saber. Staring at the girl's complaining expression, Dustless was tangled and depressed. He also complained in his heart, there are only cows that are tired to death. When have you heard of a field that is ruined by plowing? Saber is really too much. She clearly has the advantage in this kind of thing, but she still looks like she's at a disadvantage. Although he was dissatisfied in his heart, Dustless's expression did not change. He could only help Saber stand up with a smile. Looking at her cute red cheeks, Dustless could not help but give her a light peck. You. Feeling that her face was attacked, Saber stared at Dustless with a reproachful look. She stomped her feet angrily and the latter just smiled shamelessly. It's time to go back. You haven't seen Alice Phil for a long time, right? Go back and catch up. In the castle of Ahrensburg. The results are really surprising. How long has it been and 2 masters have already disappeared? Who's so strong? Are there other mysterious and powerful heroic spirits in this Holy Grail war? In the luxurious castle, Ling's eyes were slightly worried. He stared at the distant sky and was deep in thought. His usual arrogant face was now replaced by a serious expression. No matter which master it was, they would be shocked to see 2 competitors disappear out of the blue. Yo Ling. Dustless's voice suddenly came from the corridor. However, Ling, who was upset, did not seem to hear it. He continued to stand there and ponder about who was behind this. This guy. Dustless saw this and could not help but raise his eyebrows. He slowly walked over and Saber followed closely behind him. Cough cough cough. Ling, who was in a daze. To be more precise, he was looking at Dustless. Or more accurately, he was looking at Saber, who was behind him. Saber? The enemy. Seeing Saber appear, Ling was very nervous. After all, she was the servant of the palace guard. Archer, hurry up and give me Saber. Stop right there. Seeing that Rin was about to make a big fuss, Dustless quickly made a stop gesture. Then he slowly said, Ling, although the process is a little complicated and not suitable for children, I still have to tell you the truth. I am Saber's master now. When his voice fell, Dustless raised his head proudly. Rin Tozaka often mocked him for being a servant all his life. Today he could finally hold his head high for once. You are Saber's master? That's a cheap joke. Rin placed her hands on her waist. Her face was full of disdain. She looked at him with a look that said, Don't you dare try to fool me. I've already said it. It's up to you to believe it or not. Dustless shrugged nonchalantly. He ignored Rin's shocked gaze and left with Saber. By the way, I've killed Shiro and Shinji Tamatsuki. You don't have to look for them anymore. Their names have been removed from the Holy Grail War. Before leaving, Dustless added another sentence. Since Dustless had adopted Rin and his family many years ago, Rin and Wei Gong Shiro could only be considered ordinary classmates. The number of times they met could be counted on one hand, and the relationship between them was also extremely strange. Naturally, they did not have a good impression of each other. Did this guy really become Saber's master? After a while, Rin was shocked. She suddenly felt that her brain was not big enough. She suddenly realized that this Holy Grail War was very troublesome. After living with Dustless for 10 years, Rin knew how difficult it was to deal with this guy. Hey. Dustless, you're breaking the rules. You were a heroic spirit before. How can you participate in this Holy Grail War? This is cheating. I'm going to report you to the church. Rin chased after Saber and shouted. However, she did not expect a cold light to sweep over her. Little girl, if you dare to speak carelessly, I will kill you immediately. Saber held the holy sword with both hands. Her eyes were filled with killing intent. She was obviously serious. This guy. Rin was speechless. He was now sure that Saber's master was Dustless. If it was fake, Saber would not be so protective of Dustless. Speaking of which, you're not a magician. How are you going to provide Saber with mana? You don't have to worry about that, Rin. Although I don't understand the complicated principles of magicians, I know very well that mana can be replenished when mana is depleted. Chapter 1750. Ling couldn't help but be dumbstruck when he heard Wu Chen's indifferent reply. This fellow's level of shamelessness is unflattering. Especially when some words were spoken by him, the meaning of everything changed, and it's even to the extent that it's exactly what I wish for. The corner of his mouth wriggled. Just as he was about to remind Dustless of some necessary content, Dustless and Saber entered the bedroom, not giving Ling a chance to refute at all. Dustless, this guy, he must be eager to replenish his mana with Saber in his heart. Ling reprimanded loudly with extreme dissatisfaction, cursing Dustless thousands of times in his heart. But this is also good. While this guy has no time to care about Ilya and me, I'll go and find her to decide the victor. After all, I'll have to face her sooner or later. Ling's eyes shone. All along, Dustless had been interfering in her duel with Ilya for various reasons. Now she could take advantage of this period of time to decide the victor. What a brave little girl. However, little did she know that Dustless was looking down at Ling's back from the window at this moment, and every move of his could not escape from his calm eyes. Is it really appropriate for you to scheme against Ling and Ilya like this? Saber questioned. She had a feeling that if she stayed with Dustless for too long, not only would her body degenerate, but her mind would also be polluted. Idiot, your thoughts are too childish, Saber. Dustless scratched Saber's nose and explained, I've already said before that there will only be one victor in the Holy Grail War, and it will undoubtedly be me who is the strongest. Their defeat is inevitable. The word scheme is too far-fetched. I just want them to be eliminated early. Isn't it good to leave early? After all, the Holy Grail is not theirs, and it can also avoid the battle between Ling and Ilya, and the relationship between the two sides will not be damaged because of the Holy Grail War. Seems to make sense. Saber nodded vaguely, feeling that Dustless's words made sense. Even if Ling won all the way, he would still be defeated by Dustless in the end. It was better to eliminate her early so that she and Dustless would not kill each other. In a forest full of dead branches. The young girl was hiding in the forest, panting. Her face was full of sweat and her breathing speed had doubled. She looked very tired. At the same time, she didn't forget to look at the surroundings as if she was doing something shady. She was very alert. This person was Rin en Osaka. Archer. Rin Enben muttered softly and a slight ripple of power surged. Then a figure quietly appeared. It was Archer with two swords in his hands. Bling. This seems to be the house of the little girl who owns the Berserker. Are you planning to make a move on her? I remember that he didn't allow you to start a war. Apparently, it wasn't Archer's first time here. He was quite familiar with this place. The he in his mouth was referring to Dustless. That's why we have to take advantage of Dustless's depravity to launch an attack. Ling said proudly. He then pointed at the faintly discernible castle in the distance. Archer, go ahead and scout it out. Understood, Master. Archer nodded and disappeared. Really, Master really knows how to order people around. Archer's figure appeared when he was still a few dozen meters away from the Ahrensburg family's castle. Just as he was about to sneak in, a flash of light appeared out of nowhere. It was a sneak attack on Archer. Bang! The mysterious figure suddenly appeared behind Archer. He lifted his leg and launched a fatal attack. Archer was completely unaware of the attack. Crack, crack, crack. Although it was just a normal kick, Archer felt that the part of his body that was attacked had all his bones broken. Such powerful strength. Is it a berserker? Archer's heart was in turmoil. The strength of the kick was outrageous. It was almost overwhelming. Only a berserker could have such a powerful heroic spirit. However, the mysterious attacker's aura was hidden perfectly. It didn't seem like a berserker who specialized in strength. Ignoring Archer's shocked face, Dustless took the initiative to greet him. He had a bright smile on his face. He looked very warm, but his actions were extremely despicable. Why are you the one who sneak attacked me? Aren't we in the same camp? Archer almost vomited blood. He knew that Dustless was a two-faced player, but he didn't expect him to be so shameless. He even attacked his own people. Although there was only one Holy Grail and Dustless and Ling would fight sooner or later, it was only a matter of time. However, there was no need to fight now. Don't show such a shocked expression. This seems to be very normal. If you and Berserker duel, no matter who is killed in the end, the relationship between Ling and Ilya will definitely be broken. Since that's the case, I'll secretly kill you and push the responsibility to the other masters. Isn't this the best of both worlds? Dustless explained. That's true. Archer nodded stiffly. Although he knew that Dustless was being unreasonable, he and Saber felt that what Dustless said was reasonable. Regardless of whether Archer killed Berserker or Berserker killed Archer, the relationship between Ling and Ilya would eventually break down. Instead of that, it would be better for Dustless to secretly deal with them and push the blame to someone else. This way it would be the best of both worlds and their relationship would not collapse. Hey Archer, do you think I'm great? Chapter 1751. Great. Archer put on a fake smile when he heard that. A person who was about to kill him still kept on saying that he was great. Archer's heart was filled with 1,000,000 grass mud horses army. Then again, don't you want to fight with me? Archer. Dustless's tone suddenly became low and he said coldly, although you can hide it from Ling, that simple girl, but you better not think that everyone believes in Sarvant like her, and don't think that your ridiculous trick can fool everyone. Archer's face changed slightly and he refuted, sorry, I don't know what you are talking about. If you want to kill me, just come, but I won't wait for death. Archer held 2 swords and his eyes were like torches staring at Dustless, and his fighting spirit was bursting. Your acting skills are too bad. Dustless curled his lips and he keenly caught the panic in Archer's eyes, and immediately exposed his nature. Archer, or I should call you by your real name, Wei Miyashiro. As a transcendent being who had transmigrated, Dustless naturally knew Archer's true identity. He was actually Wei Gongshirlang, but the only difference was that Wei Gongshirlang had turned into a heroic spirit. In the original work, when Wei Miyashiro died, he signed a contract with the world's consciousness and became a heroic spirit. It's really surprising, I didn't expect to kill a person twice. Looking at Archer, who was ready for battle, Dustless was really surprised. How do you know this kind of thing? Seeing his identity exposed, Archer's face changed dramatically. He didn't expect Dustless to know this kind of private matter. Tell me, how do you know? I didn't tell anyone this kind of thing. Archer's voice was obviously heavier, and his hoarse voice was full of endless confusion. Even Rin Enbin didn't know this kind of thing, let alone Dustless. Sorry, I can't comment. Shrugging, Dustless showed an indifferent expression. You just die here. Don't even think about it. The red-clothed archer, also known as the heroic spirit guard Gongshirang, quickly rushed over. Dustless was too strong, so he could only launch a sneak attack, hoping to regain his advantage. Swish, swish. Wei Gongshir was holding a sharp broadsword with both hands as he descended from the sky. The cold light of the blade was about to fall on Dustless's head. You overconfident little pawn. Does a dead person want to come out and scare people? Hey, just how much resentment do you have for me, Wei Gongshirlang? Dustless had killed Wei Gongqisi and Wei Gongshiro. As a heroic spirit, Wei Gongshiro naturally hated Dustless to the bone. Shi, I've always wanted to say something to you. Go and die. Archer roared as he swung his great sword at Dustless's head. Buzz buzz buzz. Dustless naturally wouldn't sit still and wait for death. His body immediately spewed out a large amount of chakra, forming a golden absolute defense. He looked like a skeleton. Clang 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 clang. Archer's attack, which was full of expectations, ended up in a miserable state. Archer's weak attack couldn't even break through Konsusanu's defense, let alone injuring Dustless. Ka ka ka. In the end, an extremely crisp sound suddenly stopped. Archer suddenly felt that his hands were lighter. That sound was similar to the sound of steel breaking, causing his old face to turn extremely ugly. This fellow is too strong. Let alone killing Dustless, it would be difficult to even shatter this unparalleled defense. Archer clenched his fist, the veins on his forehead were hard to hide. Seems like I can only use that. Archer's face was particularly gloomy. He was forced to use his unique skill at the beginning of the fight. This kind of miserable situation was really uncomfortable, and his self-esteem was unbearable. Archer's bitter mouth opened slightly and he began to chant slowly. There was no other way. Dustless was too strong. Unless he used his trump card, he could barely deal with this guy. The body is made of the sword. The blood tide is like iron, the heart is like glass. He has never been defeated in countless battlefields. He has never been defeated and has never been understood by others. He is often alone, intoxicated in victory on the sword mound. Therefore the cliff of life is meaningless. The body must be made of the sword. At the same time, the world in Dustless's eyes slowly changed. It was exactly the same as the scene in Archer's mouth. He came to a decaying sword mound full of yellow sand and broken swords. Behind Archer there were also various huge gears. Ka moving. It was a desolate scene. The slowly rotating gears seemed to be the foundation of this world. Turning your inner thoughts into a scene of sunset, Archer. Are you just trying to win my sympathy? Silly child, you are really funny. Inside the unique, infinite sword system enchantment, Dustless stood motionless. His eyes were full of contempt. He was not the slightest bit afraid of this broken world. In the original work, there was only one reason why Gilgamesh could lose to this enchantment. He was too good at courting death and showing off his superiority. If Gilgamesh could instantly pull out a obedient leaving sword, this enchantment would be annihilated in an instant. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Huge ripples appeared in the void, followed by endless flashes of light. On top of Dustless's head, the sky was full of multicolored light. The person pointed by Qianfeng was impressively Archer. Chapter 1752. This kind of thing is useless. Archer calmly stared at the large light above Dustless's head, his eyes shining like stars. I don't know where your inflated confidence comes from. Just because of this fixed enchantment, you think you have the chance to defeat me and even kill me? Are you too ignorant? Dustless's expression turned cold and thousands of golden lights shot out without mercy. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Hundreds, thousands and even more exaggerated divine weapons were unleashed. One after another they streaked across the sky. Their numbers were inexhaustible. The vortex above his head seemed to be connected to the golden world, and all kinds of weapons would never be exhausted. This is my confidence. He waved his hand in an imposing manner and without exception, Archer's head also shot out groups of light, and similarly, countless weapons of all kinds shot out. Boom boom boom. The sky shook continuously and sparks flickered non-stop. Countless divine weapons were destroyed at this moment, and there were broken pieces of weapons everywhere. Although Archer's king's treasure was fabricated, it still displayed great power and was temporarily on par with Dustless. This is just the beginning. Seeing that the situation was good, Archer was overjoyed. The beginning was better than expected. Buzz buzz buzz. The void trembled slightly again and then countless vortexes gently spread out, forming small holes. Then all kinds of weapons appeared again to support. Boom boom boom. The saturated and dense bombardment did not stop, and the debris of weapons on the ground piled up like a mountain. In a short time the two of them had blasted out thousands of weapons. Ha! With your current state you still want to dream of suppressing me. Ridiculous. Archer raised his head and laughed proudly. As the number of weapons gradually increased, he actually suppressed Dustless. The counterfeit suppressed the genuine one. So, you're sure you can defeat me? With this ability as the foundation, you can go to the next level and steal the head of my mortal enemy? Dustless calmly asked, you think too highly of yourself. This body is an alien that you heroic spirits can't defeat. Visitors from outer space. I think so too. All heroic spirits are historical figures. As for you, even if you searched the entire history of the world, you wouldn't exist. I don't think you're a creature of this world either. But that's not important. Archer nodded in agreement. He had always doubted the origin of Dustless, but there was no trace of him. Now that he heard that Dustless was a visitor from outer space, he felt relieved, and the doubts that lingered in his heart also disappeared. You said you are invincible? What a joke. I can duplicate all of your weapons and I even have more of them than you. How dare you say that you are undefeatable? He's simply asking for humiliation. Looking at the silent Dustless, Archer saw it as a way to admit defeat. Do you think you can replicate all of my relics? Then I'll take out something genuine that can't be replicated. Dustless gave a strange smile and said in a deep voice, I'm really sorry for using trash to deal with you before. Now I'll be a little more serious. Can't be replicated? It's impossible for such a thing to exist in this world. Archer had a bad premonition in his heart. He lowered his head and thought about what Dustless was talking about. Then, a wave of evil decaying energy suddenly came from the front. Kakaka. An unknown mysterious force came and Archer's enchantment, infinite sword system, shook slightly. The crisp sound made Archer's heart jump to his throat. Is the infinite sword system collapsing? Archer's eyeballs almost fell out of their sockets. He looked up to the sky and suddenly there were countless cracks in the void. What the hell is that? Archer could not wait to look at Dustless. What kind of monster did this bastard take out? It made such a big movement. His enchantment faintly showed signs of collapsing even before he attacked. What the hell is that? Weapon. Looks so strange. Archer's gaze fell on Dustless's right hand. He suddenly realized that he was holding a strange-looking big sword in a spiral shape. The dark red demonic halo and the golden light intertwined. At the same time, it was shrouded in an evil and unknown force. It's a world of difference from the relics just now, and it really can't be replicated. Archer tried to imitate the strange sword in Dustless's hand, but he was surprised to find that he could not analyze the structure of the spiral weapon. It was as if it was something that did not belong to this world, just like Dustless. There's nothing to be surprised about. The relics that attacked you just now were actually just appetizers. It's right to say that they are relics, but speaking of my real relic, it's the Guili sword in front of you, Dustless explained calmly. Then he looked at Archer, who was panicking, and said coldly, "Tear this broken and disgusting world apart." Boom boom boom. The dark red storm suddenly erupted. Under the influence of Dustless's thoughts, the Guili sword rotated. The scarlet spiral light was instantly magnified by thousands of times. The whole world was affected by the storm. The place where Dustless stood was like a deep-sea whirlpool, constantly releasing dragon hurricanes to tear this broken world apart. The cracks in the void spread to the limit in an instant. Soon, layers of the void collapsed, gradually revealing the original world. The enchantment was instantly destroyed. Could this be a world-defying relic? Archer's face was ashen. He lowered his head and looked listless. What was a world-defying relic? In layman's terms, it was the most powerful relic that could easily tear a world apart. Chapter 1753. Crack, crack, crack. Traces that looked like broken mirrors kept falling. It was extremely fragile. After being attacked by obedient parting sword, there was no need for Dustless to continue to attack. With a slight breeze, the inherent enchantment, infinite swords, gradually collapsed and was annihilated. No wonder I couldn't replicate it. It's a world-defying relic. The power of this relic is enough to destroy the world, and its level is terrifying. Archer clenched his teeth and looked at Wu Chen's cheeky little face. He finally realized that this guy had been teasing him all along. It was simply outrageous. He clearly had the ability to directly destroy an inherent enchantment like infinite sword formation, but he had to use other trash to humiliate him. It was simply outrageous. Stupid thing. You're the one who thinks too highly of yourself. Dustless sneered. You should go back to the Hero Spirit Temple. I'm going home to take a shower and sleep. Absence makes the heart grow fonder. Dustless was distracted when he thought of Seber's body. I haven't failed yet. Archer's eyes were overbearing as he heard Lin Huang's words. His hands continued to project as two ordinary-looking swords appeared in his hands. You know that you're going to die, but you still refuse to give up. Dustless was impressed by Archer's stubbornness. He snapped his fingers and said, Heaven lock. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Two golden holes appeared in the sky, and chains that looked like they had seen the vicissitudes of life shot out from the holes. They did not turn around and went straight for Archer. Go to hell first. Archer jumped up and slashed the sword in his hand towards Lin Huang's head. However, at this critical moment he could not move his body. The sword that was slashing towards Dustless also stopped in mid-air. Damn it. You have so many strange abilities. Archer sighed in disappointment. Dustless was right in front of him, but Archer was unable to move his body in the slightest. His four limbs were all bound by the heavenly lock. Your performance is very good and your acting skills are amazing, but your audience can't arouse the slightest interest in your performance. Farewell. Photons floated and a golden sword appeared in Dustless's hand. He stared at Archer, whose face was ashen, and waved his sword without hesitation. The light also penetrated Archer's body. Poochie. A conspicuous burn mark was left on Archer's body. Dustless ended Archer's life with a single slash. What a hateful man. After receiving Dustless's fatal attack, Archer's body glowed brightly and gradually lost its texture. He looked at Dustless, who was walking away indifferently. He spat out a mouthful of blood and finally disappeared. If we meet in the next Holy Grail War, I will not lose. Hearing this, Dustless paused for a moment. He then turned his head slightly and glanced at the place where Archer disappeared. He then started walking again. Idiot. This is the last Holy Grail War. After I help Seber regain his body, I will leave and destroy the great Holy Grail under this city. At the same time, Rin and Osaka also felt Archer's disappearance and fell to the ground in a daze. Now it's time to put all the blame on someone else. Dustless smiled faintly and walked straight to the place where Rin and Osaka was hiding. Dustless would never admit that he killed Archer. Otherwise, Rin would hate him for the rest of his life. This kind of scapegoat should be left to Yen Fengili, the great priest. He and Lancer would be the scapegoat together. Luckily he used the evil of the world to revive. Otherwise, I would not be able to find a suitable scapegoat. Despicable Ilya, how dare you kill my Archer? I will never let you go. Never. In the silent forest, the sound of a young girl sobbing could be heard. Looking closely, the young girl who was venting her anger under a withered tree was Rin and Osaka. Rin, why are you crying so sadly? Dustless did not understand. His voice was filled with confusion and he looked like he did not know what was going on. Archer was killed by that B***starred Ilya. Ling punched the dead tree with his young and tender fist, then growled angrily, I will not let her go so easily. No. Dustless shook his finger and quibbled, you're wrong, Ling. The guy who killed Archer is actually Yen Fengili, that despicable and filthy villain. I saw it with my own eyes. Dustless was spouting nonsense and pushed all the blame to Yen Fengili. Yen Fengili? Impossible, he died 10 years ago. After being stunned for a moment, Rin and Osaka denied it loudly. Dustless, don't even think about covering up for that B***starred Ilya. I will die together with her. It is a fact that Yen Fengili did not die. Don't forget that Wei Gong Qixi did not die either. Yen Fengili is the same. That guy bathed in the evil of the world, from the Holy Grail and revived again. Dustless didn't know how Yen Fengili managed to survive, but he didn't know what kind of miracle it was. Anyway, he could just make it up. After all, even Dustless, the person involved, didn't know the reason, let alone Rin Enbin, who didn't participate in the Fourth Holy Grail War. Even if he bathed in something like that, Yen Fengili would have been devoured. Rin and Osaka looked at Dustless suspiciously. Dustless's heart was pounding. Yen Fengili was immortal and it was impossible for him to survive after bathing in the evil of the world. The only one who could resist it was the hero King Gilgamesh. Yen Fengili's servant was the ancient king Gilgamesh. Perhaps it was because of the former that the two of them signed a contract, causing something unbelievable to happen to Yen Fengili. Chapter 1754. Wuxian stared at Ling fearlessly with his clear black eyes. Although the little girl was puzzled, as the saying goes, the eyes are the window to the heart. After Ling saw Wuxian's magnanimous heart through his eyes, he finally nodded heavily. Yen Fengili. It's good that he's not dead. I'll take care of my father's revenge myself. Ling clenched his small fist and announced solemnly. Dustless laughed and stared at Ling Enbin silently. He was already mourning for Yen Fengili in his heart. You guys already have a feud with your father. It shouldn't matter if you guys kill Archer as well. Dustless thought. Yen Fengili was innocent. You two have guts. How dare you invade my territory? A pleasant voice suddenly sounded. There was a hint of undisguised coldness and teasing that was hard to hide. Turning his head, he saw a young girl whose appearance was very similar to Alice Field's. Her fair skin was perfect to the point of being impeccable, and her long white hair hung down to her waist just like Alice Fairfield. The young lady's entire body was filled with the aura of nobility. She was lively as she strolled over with a faint smile on her face. Of course, the feeling she gave others was not flattering, as if she was a cunning fox. Damn it, this little devil just had to come out at this time. Ling Enbin was secretly worried. She knew the girl's temper. They were old enemies, especially now that Archer was killed by Yen Fengili. She couldn't summon up her confidence to face the white-haired girl. Driven by instinct, Rin and Osaka couldn't help but hide behind Dustless. This was a real thigh. You only ask me for help at times like this, Ling. Turning his head to look speechlessly at the slightly fearful Ling, Dustless helplessly said, Ilya, I didn't come here rashly today to play Berserker. However, Ilya didn't give Dustless a chance to speak. Dustless, you are a heroic spirit left behind from the last Holy Grail War. Mother said that you are very strong, one of the strongest heroic spirits, but are you as strong as my Berserker? I'm very curious about this. The young girl revealed an innocent smile and looked at Dustless with a face full of curiosity. However, in the depths of her eyes, there was a tyrannical light. Clearly she had other plans. You want to? Dustless's eyes narrowed. The light that shot out from his eyes was exceptionally ruthless. Ilya, do you want Berserker to test my strength? The result of this answer is very expensive. Dustless reminded him in a serious tone. It doesn't matter. In any case, Dustless is his enemy. Ilya stubbornly shook her head and earnestly said, Rest assured, I definitely won't let Berserker kill you. If that happens, Mother will definitely be sad. This guy. Dustless opened his mouth and felt a headache. At this moment, Rin Enosaka's gloating voice suddenly sounded. Can you still bear it? Hurry up and kill that big Berserker. Don't make me look down on you, Dustless. I'm also very curious about the strength of the strongest heroic spirit. On Dustless's left, Rin Enosaka pulled the corner of Dustless's clothes and whispered, I know Ilya's personality. If the two of us are captured alive, this little devil will definitely do some crazy things. Ling, that's because he did something crazy to you, right? Dustless rolled his eyes. This little girl even wanted to trick him. The relationship between Ilya and Rin Enosaka was extremely bad. It was as if both of them had eaten gunpowder. As soon as they met, they would mock each other. Now that Rin Enosaka knew that his archer was destroyed, he could only hug Dustless's thick leg to shelter himself from the wind and rain. That's not important. Anyway, Berserker wants to test your strength. If you give up, at most we will be captured and tortured together. If there is a companion, I can also accept this cruel reality. Rin Enosaka waved his hand and said in a very straightforward manner. Are you two done whispering? Then become my toy now. Ilya glanced at Berserker's huge body and the latter slowly walked over. His huge body gave off an extremely oppressive feeling, and when he walked, the ground trembled. Since you have chosen to make a move, then don't blame me for being ruthless. With a vicious expression, Dustless stared at the incoming Berserker. On the surface, he looked like he was in a difficult position, but in his heart he was overjoyed. Anyway, his final goal was to kill all the heroic spirits. This was also a good opportunity to kill Berserker. This was Ilya's own humiliation. Boom, boom, boom. Under Ilya's command, Berserker waved his mace and attacked with extreme speed. Because his body was too huge, the ground shook slightly when he ran. As expected of Berserker. Although his strength is great, there are still many flaws. Calmly looking at Berserker's powerful body, Dustless opened his mouth slightly and muttered with his eyes closed. Tao Breakers 90. Black Coffin. Swish. 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 A large number of black blades fell from the sky. At a glance, there were no less than 10 blades. Roar. 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 Berserker also noticed the existence of the blades. He immediately swung his battle axe towards the sky. Chapter 1755. It's useless, big guy. Dustless couldn't help but shake his head. Although Berserker was one of the best heroic spirits, he wasn't very lucky at the moment. He had chosen the wrong opponent this time. Swish, swish, swish. Berserker raised his battle axe, but he did not manage to hit the incoming black light. The light seemed to be endowed with intelligence, as it inconceivably turned to avoid the incoming battle axe. Poochie, poochie, poochie. In the blink of an eye, all of the black coffin's attacks landed on Berserker's torso, leaving behind a ghastly blood-red blade on his huge body. Several wounds were lacerated and his flesh was badly mangled. Berserker, so strong. Rin Enosaka and Ilya exclaimed in shock as they tensed up at the same time. This guy used one move to kill a super monster like Berserker. Rin Enosaka's breathing became heavier. He did not expect Dustless to be so terrifying. It was as simple and boring as an adult bullying a child. The bloody scene was straightforward. I haven't killed this guy yet. Berserker's noble artifact is the 12 trials that he passed. If I want to kill him completely, I have to kill him 12 times. Dustless shook his head. To kill a person 12 times, Berserker was the first person that Dustless encountered. You have to kill him 12 times. Rin Enosaka pursed his lips as he stared at Berserker. It was already difficult to kill such a super monster once, let alone 12 times. You this guy. Ilya stared at Dustless as she bit her tongue and said word by word, I didn't expect you to be so strong. I suddenly regret it. Regret? Rin Enosaka was stunned when he heard that. His gaze was fixed on Ilya's delicate face as he broke out in cold sweat. Even though he hid his nervousness well, it was still obvious. I. Don't be nervous. I only killed him 5 times in one go. There are still 7 lives left. Dustless said casually. Dustless, this guy. Did he kill Berserker 5 times with that move? This hateful evildoer. Ilya has met her natural enemy this time and kicked an iron plate. Rin Enosaka's beautiful eyes widened when she heard this. Looking at the 5 bloody wounds on Berserker's body, she finally understood why Ilya regretted it. They only had 12 lives in total and they had been wiped out 5 times by Dustless. What would happen if he used that move called Black Coffin a few more times? Serves you right. You've spun a cocoon around yourself. Rin Enbin laughed heartily, not caring about his image at all. Ling, you're getting a little carried away. Even if I can't beat this guy, I can still easily deal with you. Ilya glared at Rin Enbin with displeasure. She put her hands on her hips and shouted, Berserker, grab Rin for me. I'm going to teach him a lesson. Ao. Hearing this, Berserker immediately turned his gun. After roaring at the sky, his huge and sturdy body directly attacked the dumbfounded Rin Enbin. Do you need to be this shameless? I already quit this Holy Grail war. Seeing the ferocious Berserker, Rin Enbin immediately panicked. Seeing the black battle axe in Berserker's hand, she suddenly felt the shadow of death. When she had Archer, she was not this guy's opponent. Now that she was empty-handed, she was definitely not Berserker's opponent. Right. Glancing at Dustless, Rin Enbin decisively hugged Dustless's right arm. She specifically asked for you. Dustless looked at Rin Enbin with a teasing gaze and teased. It's not bad to be Ilya's maid for a few days. Anyway, she won't make things difficult for you. Won't make things difficult for me? It's easy for you to say that. Rin Enbin angrily interrupted Dustless and yelled, I'll be tortured to death by that little devil. What a troublesome little girl. Dustless shook his head, then looked at Berserker's head and said softly, She already said that she doesn't want to follow your master, so please step aside. Focusing on Berserker's body, Dustless's forehead suddenly had some special red symbols. What's going on? Although she didn't know what happened to Dustless, Rin Enbin, who was hiding behind him, clearly felt it. Dustless's body was exploding with some kind of unexpected power. Immortal spell. Dustless suddenly raised his right arm. After glancing at Berserker, who jumped into the air, and the huge battle axe that fell down, Dustless smiled faintly. Bright God Gate. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The originally calm sky immediately turned into countless sharp roars, and the sky was suddenly covered by pitch-black shadows. This is... Looking up at the sky, Rin Enbin and Ilya were stunned. In the depths of the void, large amounts of redwood appeared without any warning, and there were so many of them that they covered the sky. Boom boom boom. Berserker, who was targeted by thousands of bright god gates, instantly suffered a tragic fate. He was mercilessly suppressed and his sturdy body was smashed into a bloody mess. Bits of flesh mixed with bone fragments splashed all over the ground. Chapter 1756. Berserker continued to roar. His hysterical roar echoed through the sky. Unlike his previous high-spirited appearance, this roar was filled with endless despair and pain. Boom, boom, boom. Being attacked from all sides by Immortal's spell, Bright God Gate, dust rose from the ground. It was as if they were on a trampoline. Ling and the others had difficulty maintaining their bodies. He took care of Berserker just like that. Did he have to be so fast? Ling Enosaka was extremely conflicted. Her expression was indescribably strange. She had expected Dustless to defeat Berserker, but this speed was too... Ling. Dustless's gaze landed on Ling Enosaka's head. His eyes glinted as he guessed, You actually wish that guy would beat me up, right? That's right. Who asked you to be so hateful? Ling said without thinking. Ling felt uncomfortable when she recalled her mother's painful moans in the middle of the night. She hoped that Berserker would teach Dustless a lesson and strike a blow to his unbridled arrogance. But that was a slip of the tongue. Ling Enosaka, who came back to her senses, quickly denied it. She shook her head violently as if she didn't say anything and it was all a misunderstanding. It's okay, Dustless looked at Ling Enosaka with magnanimity, but he was laughing in his heart. What's wrong with that? You are Kue Enosaka's daughter. I will take revenge on your mother even more fiercely in the future. Speaking of which, Berserker is dead? Ling Enosaka's eyes glowed. If Berserker was dead, she was confident that she could suppress Ilya. Ling, you better put away your little thoughts. I won't turn a blind eye to you making a move against Ilya. Wuxian gave Ling a warning glance. A basin of cold water was poured over her, and her excited mood was completely extinguished. Then he explained, don't underestimate Berserker. His true identity is Hercules, the son of Zeus. He is a powerful hero who once saved a mythological system. He is not as weak as you think. Zeus? He has something to do with Zeus. Ling's face flashed with surprise. She didn't expect Berserker to have such a powerful background. Then she nodded and said, no wonder this guy is so strong. He is the son of Zeus and Alchemy. Dustless continued, then said with contempt, but so what? He is just a stray dog. No. That. Dustless answered coldly. Everything that happened in his life was not important. Now Hercules was just a loser waiting to be slaughtered. Boom. The divine bright gates attacked to the ground. Berserker, being Berserker who was attacked by the bright gate, was who was attacked. With Berserker who was being attacked by the bright divine gate. He was. And Berserker. Was Berserker. Was Berserker. Was. With. This guy's vitality is ridiculously strong. Dustless said to himself. If it was a normal human, they would have disappeared without a trace. Berserker was still able to hold on. He didn't disgrace his identity as the son of Zeus. Dustless, look. Berserker's body is starting to heal again. Rin Farban's nervous voice disturbed Dustless, who was deep in thought. Dustless raised his head slightly, and a faint ripple immediately appeared in his calm eyes. Just as Rin Enben said, Berserker was starting to heal himself again. The divine bright gate didn't hit him completely. It only ended his life 6 times. Including the previous 5 times, it is 11 times. This is his last life. Do you want to continue, Ilya? Dustless looked at Ilya, who was a little flustered, and asked calmly. I believe in Berserker. Ilya said confidently. What's more, the meaning of Berserker's existence is to fight. If he doesn't even fight, is there a need for him to live? That's true. Dustless nodded after hearing that. He looked at Ilya in surprise. He didn't expect her to have such a unique view. It was exactly the same as what Ilya had said. The meaning of the heroic spirit's existence was to fight. Even if they died and disappeared, they were aware that this was an unavoidable fate. No matter what, you are still the son of Zeus. Show some of your true strength and let you die a worthy death, Yatsubai Ryasaka. Suddenly, the scarlet Rinnegan Sharingan flashed on his forehead, and the space in front of him exploded in an instant, and a dark mysterious space appeared. What is this? Rin Enben and Ilya were puzzled. Looking at the scarlet eye between Dustless's eyebrows, their hearts trembled. Disappear in peace. Let's kill Greybone together. Dustless raised his right hand and a rough bone sword suddenly appeared in his palm. Then his right arm went into the dark mysterious space. Crack, crack. At the same time, the void in front of Berserker shattered without any warning. Then a bone blade that shone with a cold light swept out and slashed Berserker's throat in a split second, cutting through his body. Being attacked by Let's Kill Greybone Together. The final result could be imagined. Berserker's body floated away and his body gradually peeled off. Among all the heroic spirits, you are the only one who enjoys this honor. You are the only one who was killed by the Sharingan. You can rest in peace in the underworld. Chapter 1757. Crack, crack, crack. Berserker's body rapidly collapsed and disappeared like fragments being blown away by the wind. At the same time, Berserker's scarlet eyes regained their clarity. Did he remove his berserk state? Dustless softly muttered to himself. His gaze focused on Berserker's body and discovered that the violent killing intent that seeped out of his body also disappeared as his consciousness awakened. Those scarlet eyes were now replaced by deep black eyes. You're very strong. Berserker, whose consciousness returned, spoke with a hoarse voice. You even give me the feeling that you're stronger than Father. You don't seem to be a god from a certain mythological system. Stronger than Father? Ilya and Rin Enosaka felt dizzy hearing this. Who is Berserker's father? Previously he said that he is the son of Zeus, so it goes without saying who his father is. This guy can't even defeat Zeus? What a joke. Zeus is a god and not an ordinary god. In the entire Greek mythological system, Zeus can be considered the strongest existence. Ilya and Rin and Osaka felt as if they were struck by lightning. They were dumbfounded and looked at Dustless in a daze. Do you two need to be so exaggerated? Dustless didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He was embarrassed by Rin and Ilya's shocked gazes and rubbed his nose shyly. At this moment the two women were staring at him with dumbfounded gazes. Dustless felt bitter. Not to mention where Zeus was. Even if he appeared, Dustless was confident in suppressing him. This was nothing to be shocked about. After all, countless gods had died in his hands. Farewell, Berserker. A few seconds later, Berserker completely disappeared. Dustless didn't reveal his identity. A guest from outer space didn't have any identity to reveal. Time flew by and it was night in the blink of an eye. Dustless, Rin and Osaka and Ilya all returned to the Ahrensburg family's castle. Now that Ilya had removed her master status, she was much more relaxed. Everyone gathered together for dinner at night. The atmosphere was quite pleasant. Alice Phil was especially excited when she saw Ilya appear. Although Ling and Ilya were full of contradictions, with Dustless suppressing them, no major disaster broke out between them. Our next targets are Lancer and Satyr. After killing those two we should be able to summon the Holy Grail. But other than that there's still a big problem. The carrier of the Holy Grail. In the dark room, Dustless looked through the window at the bright stars in the sky, unable to calm down for a long time. The carrier of the Holy Grail was Ilya. It was obviously impossible for Dustless to use her as a vessel for the evil of this world. Then, oh right. Dustless's eyes shone with a strange light as he muttered, it seems like the Ahrensburg family has other man-made dolls. They should be able to be the carrier of the Holy Grail. Dustless, who are you scheming against this time? A warm voice came from behind. Then Dustless found himself being hugged by soft arms. Turning his head, he saw Saber in her pajamas. Really, why do you always think of me as such a dark person? I'm not that guy Weigong Kissy. Dustless rolled his eyes and looked at Saber in annoyance. At the same time he scratched her nose. You should know about the carrier of the Holy Grail, right? The carrier of this Holy Grail war is Ilya. You want me to use that little girl as the Holy Grail? I can't do it. Dustless was not like Weigong Kissy. In order to satisfy his own ambitions he could sacrifice others. He really couldn't do such a thing, especially sacrificing someone close to him like Ilya. He would rather not have the Holy Grail. Is that so? Isn't that great? Saber smiled. She was really afraid that Dustless would kill Ilya and use her as the Holy Grail. I heard that the Ahrensburg family has other man-made dolls. Tomorrow I'll ask Rin if she can replace Ilya. She is better at this kind of problem than I am. In this magic castle the person with the richest magic knowledge was Rin Farban. Who is the next target? Leave it to me. Although you are also very strong, I'm always your Sarvat. You can't just stay at home and not do anything, right? Saber's watery eyes stared at Dustless without blinking, full of expectations. The next target, let's choose Castor. Dustless's voice was as cold as ice. The red light that emerged from his eyes was full of coldness. Castor. Do you know his whereabouts? Saber asked. You don't seem to have investigated Castor's whereabouts. Not only Castor but also the other heroic spirits. He was surprised. He hid at home all day long and didn't seem to have any other activities, but the most strange thing was that even if he hid at home and lived a decadent life, he was still very sensitive to the overall situation. The slightest movement couldn't be hidden from his eyes. Go and guess. Seeing the puzzled Saber, Dustless was secretly proud. This was the advantage of being a transmigrator. Even if he was sitting at home, everyone's changes couldn't escape his prediction, and the information he had was 100% accurate. Chapter 1758. Dustless sigh. He always likes to be mysterious. Saber sighed in her heart and her exquisite and clear eyes rolled her eyes. She was rather jealous and uncomfortable with Wu Chen's concealment. No matter what, they were on the same side and they should be honest with each other. Do whatever you want. But next time you have to bring me with you when you fight against other servants. Saber repeated solemnly as she stared at Dustless. Even though she did not have to do it herself to defeat the enemy, and Dustless, as the master, could easily defeat all the enemies on his own, Saber still felt that she was being underestimated by Dustless. After all, she was Dustless's sword. It was as if their roles had been switched. Sarvant was meant to be used for battle. If she had to rely on Dustless's protection for everything, Saber would feel ashamed, especially since she was the Night King. It would be a joke if she was protected by someone else. Speaking of which, you don't have a problem with your magic, do you? Dustless suddenly changed the topic. He frowned and said, "You know that I'm not a magician like Ling. I can't provide you with magic." "You idiot. Why do you have to worry about this? You already told me how to obtain magic last time." Saber's face was slightly red. She opened her mouth and said, "Have you forgotten?" As if it was something difficult to say, Saber closed her mouth again. She stared at Dustless with her lustful eyes. Saber, who had always been carefree, was now acting shy. "She's blushing?" Dustless was shocked. The number of times Saber blushed could be counted on one hand. Usually when she blushed, "I get it." Dustless's eyes lit up. He slapped his forehead and said without hesitation, "You're trying to say that I can replenish my magic if I run out of magic, right? Am I right, Saber?" Saber's pretty face immediately turned red when she heard that. She looked at Wuxian with a panicked expression. Then she glared at him fiercely and cursed in her heart. How shameless is this guy? It's enough that he knows it in his heart. Why did he have to say it out loud so shamelessly? Hee. Seeing this, Dustless laughed evilly. His wolfish eyes scanned Saber's beautiful body. Silence was a tacit agreement. "Hee, I'm going to take advantage of you." As Saber was wearing pajamas, the pure white color was almost transparent. In addition, Wuxian had good eyesight, so some parts of her body were as clear as if she was not wearing any clothes. "Then go replenish your magic, Saber. This is a big deal. If you run out of magic, I'll be very troubled. A lack of magic will also cause your combat power to decrease. You won't be able to complete the mission that I've given you." After saying that, Dustless carried Saber to bed. Even though she was struggling very hard, her weak strength did not affect Dustless at all. After a night of silence, it was already the next day. Dustless crawled out of bed feeling refreshed. Dustless lazily walked to the balcony and looked at the cloudless sky. He stretched lazily. The bright sun shone down from the 9 heavens and everything was flourishing. Dustless was having a good time last night. On the other hand, Saber was almost passed out. 2 hours later, it was almost 10 o'clock. Saber and Ling will temporarily go to the Ahrensburg family to ask for a new holy grail that contains the evil in the world. If they take the initiative to ask for it, it's fine if they don't have it. But if they have it and they hide it secretly, I don't think I need to tell you what to do, right? Taking advantage of the short time when everyone was eating breakfast together, Dustless said while eating, "As for the others, if there's nothing important, don't go out casually. I have a feeling that the Holy Grail War will come to an end in the next few days. Especially you. Without my permission, you're not allowed to go out." Dustless deliberately put on a stern face and looked at Ilya seriously. Among the few of them, this girl was the most active and disobedient. She often relied on Alice Field's pampering to go against Dustless. "I won't listen to you." Just as Dustless expected, Ilya only made a face at Dustless and then completely ignored him. She jumped into Alice Field's arms and acted cute, scolding Dustless. "What are you doing?" Ling Enbin crossed his legs, took a sip of black tea, showed a satisfied look and asked, "Hiding at home and basking in the sun leisurely." "Exactly. I'm responsible for protecting the safety of my family." Wuxian nodded calmly and righteously. He didn't feel that there was anything wrong with it. His tone was as if he was thinking for everyone, but his lazy look gave people a feeling that he was slacking off in the midst of a busy day and taking advantage of his position for personal gain. "All in all, everyone just acts according to my plan." As for the problem with Castor and Lancer, Dustless temporarily turned a blind eye to it. Even if he didn't take the initiative to attack, he believed that Castor and Lancer would take the initiative to attack first. "Ling, Saber, the two of you must be careful. The remaining enemies will be driven to desperation. Even though Sarvant doesn't care to do some despicable acts, their master might use the command curse to give orders directly." Wuxian stared at the two women. Her bright eyes flickered with a strange light. "Understood." Saber and Ling Enbin looked at each other. They could also see the confusion in each other's eyes. They immediately nodded without a trace. They always felt that Dustless's words had a hidden meaning, so they secretly raised their guard. Chapter 1759. Everyone noticed Dustless's abnormality and everyone was puzzled. They all looked at his calm and deep face, and seeing that Dustless didn't intend to explain in detail, they all lowered their heads in silence and chose to ignore him. No matter what happened, all the girls knew that Dustless wouldn't harm them. This was publicly acknowledged. Time flew by and unknowingly a few hours had passed. Saber and Ling also left quietly. During this time Ilya, who was extremely bored, pestered Dustless, asking him to bring her out to play. In your next life. Dustless heartlessly rejected Ilya. There was no room for discussion. If he took Ilya out, what would happen to Rin and Osaka, Tama Tanjing and her mother Alice Field? If the enemy took advantage of Dustless sneaking out to play to launch a sneak attack, the consequences would be unimaginable. However, Ilya wasn't an incompetent person. She quickly used her trump card, acting coquettishly. Although Dustless had a heart of stone and rejected Ilya's suggestion without any trace of politeness, her mother Alice Field couldn't be as ruthless as Dustless to refuse. Every mother was benevolent and great. In the end she couldn't stand Ilya's coquettish and cute attacks and threw away her armor to surrender. Ilya encouraged Alice Field to beg Dustless. It's indeed a bad thing for a person to be too educated and reasonable. Looking at the several figures behind him, Dustless finally bowed down to Alice Field and agreed to take Ilya out to play. Considering the safety of Enosaka, Tama Tanjing and the others, it was fortunate that Dustless brought everyone out together in the end. If he wasn't at home, it would be more dangerous for Alice Field and the others to stay in the castle. Since that was the case, it was better for everyone to go out and play together. During this period of time, a large amount of time was spent dealing with other heroic spirits, so it was good to relax appropriately. Buy that for me, I want to eat that, quickly go there to play, I want that. On the bustling street, Ilya was jumping around like a fairy and Dustless was tailing her like a shadow. Behind Dustless were Alice Phil, Kei Enosaka and Tosakura Nakamura. Compared to the lively Ilya, Xiao Ying was much more restrained. Time flew by quickly. As they strolled around, it was already close to afternoon. Dustless had thought that it would be a rare relaxing day, but after witnessing the nature of women who loved shopping, Dustless realized that he was gravely mistaken. Dustless had been wandering around with Alice, Phil and the others for the whole afternoon. He really felt that sometimes, women were more difficult to deal with than godlike opponents. At the Central Park of Dongmu City. After walking around for an entire day, the girls finally felt tired. During this period they bought a large number of daily necessities, which were all temporarily stored in Dustless's Divine Might dimension. If Uchiha Obito knew that Dustless used his Kamui to store the gift, he would most likely rush out of hell to settle accounts with Dustless. This day is really fulfilling. Alice Phil was lying on a park bench comfortably with her head resting on Dustless's legs. She was holding an ice cream in her hand, and her eyes were squinted into a crescent moon. It was not difficult to see that she had a very comfortable and happy day. You guys are comfortable, but Dustless's expression was quite gloomy. Alice Phil and the others seemed to be doing it on purpose. During this period they also went to a women's underwear shop and a bikini swimwear shop. Dustless naturally followed them for safety reasons. It was inevitable that he would be pointed at and treated as a pervert by others. Dustless, my stomach is not feeling well. Hurry up and accompany me to the bathroom. Ilya suddenly jumped in front of Dustless with a sad expression. Your stomach is not feeling well? Ilya, you deserve it. You ate the ice cream of 5 or 6 people by yourself. You asked for it. Remember not to be greedy in the future. Dustless reprimanded loudly. Even so, he still pulled Ilya in the direction of the open beta. I didn't expect that I would fall to this point one day, being a guard in the bathroom for a kid. Dustless looked at the women's restroom not far away, about 5 or 6 meters away, and sighed with his head down. Look at this shameless guy, he actually shamelessly broke into the women's restroom. When Dustless was admiring himself, a shrill scream suddenly sounded in the quiet women's restroom. There are so many perverts these days. Hearing the scream of panic, Dustless sighed at the hypocrisy of the world. At the same time, a very destructive energy fluctuation invaded his detection nerves. Under the full release of observation hockey, the mysterious power fluctuation was particularly clear. Is this magic power? I knew that it would attract the attention of other heroic spirits sooner or later. Without thinking about it, Dustless directly broke into the women's restroom. When he arrived, there was no one in the women's restroom. There was only a heroic spirit with a gun and a pale face. Yo Lancer, I didn't expect it to be you. You don't look so good. But then again, I didn't expect you to have such a strong taste. You dare to openly invade the women's restroom. Seeing Lancer's constipated expression, Dustless joked in surprise. Shut up, you bastard. Hearing Dustless's ridicule, Lancer's face turned green, and thick red veins even appeared on his forehead. He hated his master to death in his heart. Damn Yanfeng, he dared to use command curse to order me to catch that kid. How dare he? Lancer vomited blood and he was so angry that he jumped and trembled. If it was in other places it would be fine, but in the current situation, especially when Master Yanfeng used an irresistible killing weapon like command curse, Lancer couldn't disobey the order at all. Let alone a women's restroom, even if it was a cesspool, he must jump in. You idiot, you're about to die. Don't you know that you've been used by others? Seeing Lancer's resentful expression, Dustless secretly sighed that it was ridiculous. The so-called hero spirit was actually being used as a chess piece by others.